Testing microphone.
Good morning, Dallas. You want to do a quick sound check with me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Can I have you go ahead and speak again? We're having hard, I think I need to work on some technical stuff.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, no, okay, we'll be back to you.
Yes, can you? I can hear you well. Can you hear me? Okay.
Testing 1, 1, 2, 3.
Just so you know, we're working on video, just.
Yeah, they're clearly still there, but you know how it's like,
The after name was. It's the shortest in case Oh, we do have one coming last year, but we have some just before last year. End of year. What is it? Okay, you know. But AMC's.
They do question. I just start like.
Dallas, let's try that again.
Can you hear me now?
Good news. Thank you.
Okay.
Looking good, Michelle?
Can you hear me now?
There always a delay.
We can hear you, Dallas, but there's an echo, so just hang tight. You're perfect. to get my glasses on. Good morning, everyone. We're starting a few minutes late, but we're ready to start. Welcome to those of you who are here in the room and also to everybody who's online. And we understand that there'll be the people online will not be able to see those of us in the room, but they can see the presentations, if I'm correct about that. So we'll go ahead and start. And I'm Mary Wall, Chair of the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Commission, and I'd like to call our Friday, August 15th, 2025 meeting to order, and we'll go ahead and do introductions of the other commissioners.
Good morning, Becky Hatfield Hyde, Klamath Basin and Near Brothers.
And good morning, Mark Labhart. I live in Sisters.
Yeah, good morning also. Bob Spellbrink, Siletz, Oregon.
Good morning, Dr. Leslie King, Portland, Oregon.
And Dallas DeFries, could you also introduce yourself?
Yep. Good morning, Dallas Hall DeFries from Baker County.
Thank you. We'll go to Director Colbert.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Debbie Colbert, the Director of Fish and Wildlife.
Thank you. And Michelle, will you introduce yourself and add anything you need to on the logistics?
Good morning. I'm Michelle Tate. I'm here with the director and the commission to provide this meeting as a hybrid model. I want to let everybody know, as Chair Wall had mentioned, that we are having some technical difficulties. We're still working on trying to get the cameras working. All of the content will be visible online with the exception of the cameras in the room. So the only thing you're missing is pictures of the commissioners in the dais or of the testifiers. So really the majority of the content, 99.5% will be streamed online. You'll have no problem with seeing that. And we'll be working on it all day. Hopefully we will be able to get it resolved.
Thank you. I want to mention one thing about today's meeting. Later on today at 11, actually, we will get to acknowledge and thank the ODF&W staff for the work they do every year, or all day, every year, for Oregon's public and natural resource assets that we have in this state. The director and we on the commission get to honor a few of the staff with awards, but I think I speak for the entire commission when I say that we would like to also recommend or recognize the remarkable set of skills, expertise, history with all these issues that we have in front of us, and the brain trust that is the ODF&W staff in Oregon. We have a huge asset with more than 1,200 people who work all year on these issues and projects and what we hear in front of us. We appreciate what you do and the skills and what you are able to accomplish with it. So thank you. Just for today's meeting, we have several major issues to consider. It will be a long meeting. We do have a time certain for the awards, which is at 11. So with that, we'll go right to the director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for those very, very nice comments. Appreciate that. Commissioners, you do have your field report in the packet. It has been posted online. And, again, I think just another great, to your point, Chair Wall, set of stories of the work that we do across the state with so many different organizations and so many different communities. So I hope you have a chance to check that out. I just had one thing I wanted to highlight this morning, and it's in the good news category. I wanted to just let you know that our very favorite Captain Casey Thomas has been promoted, and he, starting November 1st, will be the captain of the Police Services Bureau, which will oversee not only the Fish and Wildlife Division, but also patrol services and criminal investigations and other areas. So I just want to congratulate Captain Thomas.
Yay.
And I wanted, you probably saw in our minutes that we are very excited that Lieutenant Doug Shugart, who is the lieutenant for the Northwest region of the Fish and Wildlife Division at OSP, will assume the role of captain of Fish and Wildlife Division, I think October 1st, if I'm remembering correctly. And he has had 27 years with Oregon State Police, 12 of that within the Fish and Wildlife Division. And we're just really excited to welcome him into his role. And we're just like, this is all part of our plan. We're just going to keep like everybody in, OSP is ultimately going to be from the Fish and Wildlife Division. It's all part of the plan. But congratulations again to both of you. Yay.
Just quickly, Director, thank you. Just to clarify, like, his chain of command is a really big deal with our OSP folks. He will actually be major.
What did I say?
Captain. So, Captain, my captain will become a major.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I told him already, please forgive me if I continue to call you Captain Casey, but his role, he takes over all these other divisions and becomes some highfalutin major. So again, congratulations once again.
Thank you for catching that, Commissioner King. All right, with that, we can go to the Commission's financial report, and Ken Lofink, our Chief Operating Officer, is joining us, and he's also going to give you an update on kind of where things landed on a 25-27 budget that just started.
Let's try that again. Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield, Hyde, Commissioners, Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Ken Lofink. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife here in HQ. A little bummed that we're having video issues this morning. I told my kids I was going to be on YouTube. They were looking forward to it. Now they won't believe me. So that's okay. So just I'll start things off like Director Colbert said with the basic financial report. This is our financial. We'll work on that over there while I'm giving the financial report. So this is going to be our last financial report for the 23-25 biennium. So through June 30th, 2025, the department's unrestricted cash balance finished at $73.3 million. And our restricted cash balance finished at $89 million for a total of $162.3 million in custody at State Treasury. As per usual, the unrestricted cash balance includes $20 million in insurance funds that were for damages incurred during the 2020 wildfires. Minus insurance funds, the available unrestricted cash balance is $52.8 million, which is consistent with our preliminary budget forecast from the beginning of the biennium. I will note that restricted cash went up quite a bit in the last month since our last report, which is the result of receipt of $13.25 million in lottery bond funding that'll be used for fish and wildlife passage infrastructure projects. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my 25-27 budget update. So if you notice an increase there, that's why. We had a big chunk of cash from lottery bond sales. And then just lastly, for the 23-25 biennium, all expenditures and revenues are tracking as expected. Even though the end of the biennium was June 30th, 2025, the biennium really doesn't close until the end of the year. And so we're still going to be incurring costs and doing a lot of work with our accounting staff to finalize those 23-25 budgets. So we'll continue to see expenditures rise for the 23-25 budget. And I'll also just note that we're entering the time of year where our license sales start to decrease a bit. And so we're going to see a little more downward pressure on our unrestricted cash balance here through December. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see a pretty significant drop here before the end of the year and before our license sales pick up again in January. And the last thing, just for some context, we started the biennium June 30th, 2023, 2 years ago, with $73 million in unrestricted cash. And so that was before we received the insurance payment. So just showing that over the course of the biennium, we dropped about $20 million in cash there. And like I said, that was expected with our budget forecast and just where we are with our expected revenues and expenditures. And we're hoping here with fee increases and some of the austerity measures that we took, that going forward, we're going to be pretty stable and sustainable. And again, that kind of sets the stage for my 25-27 budget update. But before I do that, is there any questions about the June financial report? All right, we'll just roll right into it here. So 25-27 budget update. Let's go back. I'm not sure how to fast forward. So before we get into just the numbers, people always say, you send out an update and there's, 600 million or 50 million. What do those numbers mean? So just set the stage with some budget basics and some terminology. So our legislatively adopted budget is really just the revenues and expenditures and limitation from all sources as approved by the legislature. And that legislatively adopted budget is made up of current service level, which is all of our permanently funded programs carried forward with an inflation factor, plus new investments, so policy option packages or other packages or other bills that add funds to ODFW, minus reductions. So reductions being any reductions to our permanently funded program. So that's it. There's a lot of details that go into it, but just when we think of numbers and whole numbers, that's really bare bones what it is. And I'll go through kind of each one of those little pieces as we go forward. So let's talk timeline. So I just like to put this up here just to show you how far we've come. I mean, this started really January of 2024, so over a year and a half ago. In the early budget development time, we're trying to figure out what our priorities were. And I just want to mention, we were really intentional this go around with our engagement, with bringing stakeholders along, really trying to keep folks informed, help have our stakeholders really inform what their priorities are, and really take that feedback into the budget development process. They're never perfect. I'm really proud of the efforts that our leadership team went through with our engagement with our stakeholders, and I think it really paid dividends down the line as we work through some of these difficult concepts. If you remember back in June 2024 in Chiloquin, we presented the agency request budget for approval. After that, it goes to DAS. DAS does their thing. The governor submits or creates her recommended budget December 1, and that's ultimately the budget that we as the department take forward to the legislature. I'm going to fast forward and gloss over like several months of really hard work here. But during legislative session, as you all know, we present our budget, and we also work on companion bills with the legislature. And upon approval, the contents of our budget bill and companion bills is really what makes up the contents of our legislatively adopted budget. So what are those bills? So House Bill 5009 was our agency's budget bill. It includes all current service level programs, approved policy option packages, reductions to current service level, and revenues from companion bills. House Bill 2342 is our recreational and commercial fee adjustment bill, which prescribes fee adjustments in 2026, 2028, and 2030. House Bill 2035 creates the Oregon Hatchery Maintenance and Monitoring Fund to provide dedicated funding for hatchery monitoring and maintenance. Reductions to current. House Bill 5006 is the omnibus bill, Christmas tree bill, and a session bill, however you want to name it. And in that bill, it provided $1.4 million in one-time funding that's general fund to continue production of existing hatchery programs in the Umpqua Basin and to conduct research while ODFW and the Cow Creek Tribe of Umpqua Band of Indians work together on a long-term vision for hatchery production in the basin. Senate Bill 5505 and 5506 provide the authorization and expenditure limitation for use of general obligation bonds for capital construction projects. Then lastly, House Bill 2982 generates additional revenue for the Aquatic Invasive Species Program and will increase ODFW's capacity to operate check stations. So I'll get into more details on those in a little bit, but I wanted to have this slide here just to show that, all these bills, in concert kind of make up our legislatively adopted budget, but it's important to note that each one of these bills had to go through the legislative process individually. Key elements could be added or subtracted by the legislature at any time. And I want to mention this to highlight and acknowledge the broad support from our stakeholders and how critical that support was to our budget. For each bill, frankly, there was overwhelming support for agency programs and funding. As an example, for the agency's budget bill during public testimony, our stakeholders and our support folks, literally packed the house. We had a overflow room. They had to get us in an overflow room for folks to watch and provide testimony. And it was just, it was really great. And that was throughout. That was our budget bill, but we had the same that occurred for our fee increase bills, and just the support from our stakeholders was just tremendous throughout. And so really want to just acknowledge them and thank them. I can't possibly name them all, but so apologies if I leave you out, but just want to name a few. Support from Oregon Hunters Association, Trout Unlimited, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Wild Salmon Center, Oregon Ocean Alliance, Northwest Steelheaders, the Oregon Wildlife Coalition, and many others were critical to ensure the inclusion of key bill elements and the ultimate passing of these bills. So just a huge shout out to our stakeholders. And again, just referencing back to our budget development process and the intentional efforts that the department took and our leadership took to keep folks engaged, educated, and involved with the process. It was really, I think, a good process that worked well. All right, now to the fun stuff. Well, I'm a numbers guy, so this is fun for me, but it is fun. The column on the right here is the amount of total funds broken down by category in the agency's legislatively adopted budget. Also noted is positions in our budget. And for comparison, I've put the figures for the 23-25 legislatively approved budget. As you'll note, the 25-27 budget includes a slight increase in general fund, lottery fund, and other fund, and a slight decrease to federal funds. And these are the result of some new investments from general fund, an increase in lottery funds to pay for debt service associated with lottery bonds, and an increase in other fund license revenues from our recreational and commercial fee increase, as well as the addition of some capital bond projects that we'll talk about here in a little bit. The federal fund decrease is really just from some adjustments or from some limited duration federal grants that we're concluding during the last biennium. I also want to highlight the position numbers. While we are adding some positions from new policy option packages, many of the packages we brought forward included limited duration positions that existed in the 23-25 biennium. And many POPs were self-funded and utilized existing funding and positions to prioritize new efforts in certain sectors. And we'll get into that a little bit, but just did want to highlight that we do see a fairly significant decrease in our positions this biennium as compared to last biennium. And the last piece of that, and I'll get into this in a few slides, is the budget included reductions with eliminated positions. And reduce services in some programs. And while challenging, these adjustments were necessary to ensure our expenditures balance with the expected revenues, and we ensure sustainability moving forward. So these figures, aka our budget, represent all our permanent programs moving forward, minus agency reductions, plus new investment packages. And so let's talk about some of those. So I'll go over all the policy option packages that were included in our budget individually briefly, but this just provides a broad overview. A couple things to point out. You'll see in the policy total, $75 million. It can be a little misleading. It is $75 million, but within that, you'll see there's a couple big ones. So one is the $18 million in additional revenue. So that's our fee increase revenue. And $25 million in infrastructure investments. That's bond funding. And on the last line, $10 million for the private forest accord. And also, as stated previously, many of these POPs that are in there were continuations from the previous biennium. So not necessarily new program, but we do have some new programs sprinkled in that I'll talk about as we go through each one individually. The first one and the big one that I'll talk about is our fee package. So that's package 107. And these are the revenues, additional revenues to our budget garnered from our fee increase package that was approved by House Bill 2342. A couple of key notes here. The fee increase in House Bill 2342 sustains core programs, were based on extensive public input, and sought to keep entry-level licenses low while also recognizing the cost and complexity of management associated with certain products. These fees are critical for funding boots-on-the-ground efforts for restoring habitat, operating fish hatcheries, and enforcing fish and wildlife laws, as well as monitoring populations. So don't expect you to memorize these, but just wanted to put it up there. We saw these way back in June, but wanted to bring forward these again. So these are our adjusted fees going forward through 2030. This is for angling fees. And I know, as noted previously, House Bill 2342 rolls three fee increases up over 3 separate license years. So license years 2026, 2028, and 2030. A couple things to note, based on direct feedback from our stakeholders, the popular youth license is held at $10, and the base angling license, which is our most popular product, increased from $44 to $50. Some products saw higher jumps, most notably our combined angling tag, which again is reflective of the complexity and high cost of managing salmon and steelhead fisheries. I'll also note that the fee package includes the new ocean endorsement, which will be required to angle for species other than salmon and steelhead and shellfish in the ocean. And funds from the new ocean endorsement will be deposited into the Marine Fisheries Enhancement Fund subaccount and will be used to help manage these fisheries. On the wildlife side, shown on the screen is the updated fee table for the recreational hunting products. Similar to the fish side, we sought to keep the entry-level licenses low and incorporated feedback from stakeholders into the approved fee schedule. Most notably, again, there were no increases to youth licenses, and turkey, bear, and cougar tags were also held flat. And this is based on, again, direct feedback from our stakeholders that we incorporated into the fee table. And again, this is a quick overview of the fees, but these fee increases are critical for funding for our core programs, and we appreciate all the input and support from our stakeholders on these adjustments. Moving on now, so let's talk about bond packages. Our budget include 3 bond packages. Package 120 is our hatchery resiliency infrastructure package. This package provides $20 million in funding for hatchery infrastructure and resiliency projects. Now, I haven't been around forever, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is a historic level of commitment and investment for our hatcheries. Again, these are bond funds. These aren't licensed funds. These aren't general funds. This is based on bond sales. It's $20 million that we can use to improve our hatchery infrastructure and is really going to help us pave the way towards a resilient and sustainable hatchery system going forward. Hoping this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this, but this is a really good and exciting step forward for our hatchery system. Similarly, we have a package 122, which is expenditure limitation for fish and wildlife passage infrastructure. These bonds were actually approved during the 23 legislative session, and this package actually gives us the expenditure limitation to spend those funds. So it's broken down $8 million or so for fish passage and $5 million for wildlife passage. And these are going to be monies that will provide, direct benefits for connectivity for our species on the ground. And then package 123 is another agency infrastructure package that provides $5.25 million in bond funding, which will be coupled with previous bond funding that we've received to fund construction of a new office at our aging North Willamette District Office in Clackamas. This is a much needed replacement that will be welcomed by our staff and our public as well, and will be much better suit our needs and provide better customer service up in Clackamas. Construction on that project should start later this year or early 26, so very exciting. Moving on now to our general fund investment packages. We'll start with the debt service. So these are new general funds, but we have debt service to pay for bond funding. So we have general fund that pays for debt service to help pay back the bonds for the hatchery infrastructure projects, and as well as the North Willamette Watershed District Office, package 121 and 124. Then we have 2 new general fund, new-ish general fund investments. One's a continuation, package 101, which provides $100,000 in funding for legal costs associated with addressing water rights and land use protests. And then we have package 102, which creates a new position to work on fish grading and passage issues in the Klamath Basin. So really critical post-dam removal, lots of issues there. So excited to get that position up and running. Moving on now to other fund investment packages. We have several other fund investment packages that either continue and make permanent existing programs or fund new priorities. Some highlights on the screen include Pacific Coast Salmonid Restoration Funds for the Klamath Basin Reintroduction Monitoring, Natural Climate Solution Funds to continue implementation of Fish and Wildlife Natural Climate Solution Fund projects, continuation of a position to coordinate ODFW's new Hunt by Reservation program, new positions to establish an early response team to monitor harmful algal blooms, and makes permanent 1 full-time position in the Dungeness Crab Project to support requirements for fishery authorization, management, and whale entanglement monitoring. Continuing with other fund investment packages, we have package 115 that establishes a full-time position and 8 seasonal positions to increase monitoring and surveillance of chronic wasting disease. This is funded by our license fee increase. This is a high priority and something we heard loud and clear from our stakeholders as a significant concern going forward for our deer and elk populations. Package 119 continues a limited duration position to create a new agency website, also a much needed improvement. The agency has a team that has been working on this project, and we're just about to come up under contract with a firm that will help us with design, content strategy, and the ultimate build of the new website, which will be complete at the end of this biennium. And package 126 utilizes existing funding to establish seasonal positions and a new wildlife integrity coordinator position to continue efforts to prevent aquatic invasive species from entering the state and manage the impact of invasive species on Oregon's native species. Shifting gears now, we also have several packages I'll just refer to as net zero or fund shift packages. So these are packages where we utilize existing resources or position authority, repurpose it to do something else to meet a priority need. Two things to highlight are the creation of a new Klamath Watershed District Manager in POP 116. Currently, we have one watershed manager that covers the Klamath Basin, the Great Basin of Southeast Oregon, Upper Snake, and the Owyhee. Phil's back there. It's a huge, just a huge area. And this is especially with the Klamath Dam removals coming out, this position is just going to be sorely needed, and just is going to be really great to get that position on board and just have the extra capacity there in the Klamath Basin. And then POP 118 creates a public records and retention analyst position. So this position will be new in the director's office to help manage our public records process and do a variety of things for the director's office, which will better meet the needs of our staff and be more efficient in our response to public records requests, which do number in the hundreds or maybe more. Other packages include fund shifts to better align position authority with federal funding for Willamette fish research and modeling, reclass an existing position to fund a GIS application developer position, fund shifts to increase youth and adult hunter education, and consolidation of existing federal funds to create a seasonal biological assistant position to support wildlife conflict work with beavers and wild turkeys in the South Willamette watershed. Then lastly, we have one federal fund package, Package 125, which creates a full-time position to serve as the agency's mitigation coordinator and habitat division. This package also includes repurposing an existing NRS 5 position to work on climate adaptation and climate resiliency for our wildlife division programs. And one last investment that I want to highlight is a package that was added during legislative session, which is a package that provides $10 million in general fund to the Private Forest Accord grant program. This funding will be deposited into the Private Forest Accord mitigation subaccount to be used by the PFA grant program. And importantly, per the bill, funding is established as continuously appropriated, which means that it now becomes part of our current service level budget package moving forward. So we get it next year too, and the year after.
That is huge.
All right, circling back to that last piece of the equation, which are reductions to current service level. As you're aware, we, through our budget package, proposed $8.5 million in reductions to license funded programs. This was in an effort to balance agency expenditures with expected revenues. While painful, this was a necessary step to avoid further fee increases and to ensure agency core operations could be sustainably funded through 2031. On the screen now is an overview of the specific programs that were impacted. The Oregon Hatchery Research Center was defunded, with funding rededicated to the Hatchery Monitoring and Maintenance Fund as established in House Bill 2345. In addition, reductions included the funding of the Salmon River Hatchery and Rock Creek Hatchery. But as previously noted, House Bill 5006 included funding to continue hatchery programs in the Umpqua Basin in 25-27. But this package, our reduction package, still reduces the license funds associated with that hatchery production. Other reductions include reductions to fish research and monitoring, regional administration in our field offices, fish district staff, reductions to central services, reductions in payments to the Oregon State Police, and commercial fish fund reductions to commercial fisheries and some marine and Columbia River programs. In total, reductions included 40 positions, equating to about 28 full-time employees. These were hard. These were painful. These are real cuts to our programs and staff. But through this, I want just to give a huge shout out to our human resources team and our Chief Human Resources Officer, Caitlin Prieto in particular. They worked just tirelessly on this with our managers. And I also want to shout out to our managers who really worked really closely with impacted staff on a day-to-day basis. These are hard. This is challenging, and it's never perfect, but I'm really proud to say that we put a ton of effort into trying to do right by our staff. Out of all the folks impacted, I'm proud to say that the vast majority of folks, we found landing spots in the agency. There are a few exceptions, a few cases where folks found employment elsewhere or moved on, but by and large, we found landing spots for most people. And so just wanted to highlight that the efforts from HR and the efforts from our manager, I mean, these are hard, these are real impacts, and it was really challenging. But just want to thank everyone for their work on the very challenging task. And not to end things on a sour note, I want to bring us back to the budget numbers and really highlight a couple things. just spoke about reductions, but I really think I want to end things on a positive note with our budget. There's a lot to be proud of in this budget. There really is a lot to be proud of in this budget. At minimum, the LAB provides sustainable funding for our core programs, and I feel really good about sustainably funding our core programs through at least 2031. That's at minimum, but at best, it also includes new strategic investments in several areas that will create more resilient agency infrastructure and increase our ability to serve species and all Oregonians in several sectors. So a lot of things, the budget's really about core programs, but there's a lot of things we can build upon moving forward here too. So a lot to be proud of, and I think we're set up well in 25, 27 and moving forward into the future. I thank you for the opportunity to present this morning, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ken. It looks like Commissioner Labhart has a question, and then Commissioner King.
Mostly a comment. Thanks, Chair Wall. Thank you, Ken. Very good report and very comprehensive. From my perspective, I would think that, as you said, this keeps the department on the forefront of achieving what's behind us right here, the mission of the department. And many of us watched the budget process, and I was very pleased. As you know, and many people know, the commission doesn't set fee increases, that's set by the legislature. And I was just so overwhelmingly impressed by our constituents, our stakeholder groups, and just public citizens that came and testified in support of a fee increase. As I recall, there was no negative that I recall that said we don't want to have a fee increase. They understood the need for it. It's been a number of years since we've had the fee increase. It's ratcheted out, as you said, over several biennium. That says a lot about the department. It was pretty much overwhelmingly approved by the legislature, which is huge when you have people that don't like fee increases, but there was strong support for that. And I just can't thank our constituents and stakeholder groups and the public for that support, because that was a game changer for this department if we would not have got that fee increase. So very, very supportive of that personally, and thanks for those out there that did support that. You mentioned the hatchery bond sales. That's huge. You mentioned how huge it was. Our hatcheries are in really bad shape. They were built back in I think the 50s and maybe even earlier than that. And there's a big need for a lot of work on our hatcheries, and this bond sale, in my opinion, is just absolutely huge for getting us started or continuing us in the direction of repairing some of these hatcheries. So, my closing comment is thank you to all of those that are watching that supported this budget. It's not perfect. The only downside for me was House Bill 2977, which was the 1% for wildlife bill that passed almost unanimously out of the House and was on the way to passing in the Senate and got stymied in the last days or so of the legislative session. That was going to be another game changer for the department, in my opinion. And it didn't pass, but maybe there'll be some other opportunities to move that forward. But I don't want to end on a down note either. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for the staff that testified, that provided the background information so that legislators felt comfortable in supporting this budget. It's a big deal, and it's going to move a long ways toward achieving that mission. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Commissioner King.
Thank you, Chair Wall. And thank you, Ken. I echo my colleague. Thank you for your hard work. I think we don't thank you enough, especially it's the environment that we are kind of all in, where every day is just a new show. Most of the time that show is not good. And you soldiered on, and we've talked about, many of you know I'm on the budget committee, and we've talked about breathing and just getting through the day and not getting so overwhelmed with everything that was buffeting us in all directions. This could have gone a very different way. So you and your staff should be commended on the job you did with what you had. And, you breezed by it kind of a little bit, but, understanding how hard it was, those staff reductions, because I remember June and Chiloquin when we announced that and how real that was and how that affected people. And the fact that we handled that with such grace, I think, is important, because I always talk about people. and just making sure we took care of our people. So, and what we've talked about separately, like there's going to be more of that. It's not in this budget, but the next one that is coming towards us. And that's the question I've already kind of tipped you off. I'm going to ask you. We know what's coming. We know that there is going to be some major austerity that hits us. And what are we thinking, and how are we breathing and preparing for those big cuts in the billions that is going to hit this state in the coming year or two? It's kind of this delayed reaction of what happened with, quote, the big beautiful bill, but that reaction is coming. And so how are we kind of thinking about that? And I'll let you make some comments before I ask some questions.
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioner King, thank you for the comments. I'll just say it was a team effort from a lot of folks in this room getting through a lot of these things. So I think what you're referencing is some of the reductions to like healthcare benefits and things like that are coming from the federal level, and how that might impact just state general fund coffers. And so I'll just speak just briefly is that, we're going to be closely monitoring things with our governor's office. We're already having conversations with our governor's office, or DAS chief financial office, on any general fund impacts that this might have to the state of Oregon, and how that might trickle down to ODFW. I think that it remains to be seen, how this will impact ODFW, but we're going to be ready, and we're going to be working as proactively as possible with like I said, our various government teams throughout the enterprise on being prepared. Just recently there's been conversations of start doing a little planning, and thinking of if of how we might have to work with our general fund. I'll just say this, I'm just presenting on our 25-27 budget, but planning for 27-29 just around the corner. We'll start doing some of that work in earnest, like in November, as early as November and December, and start thinking about some of these things. But I'll just end again and say that we're set up well. No, I can't tell you exactly what the future holds. We're going to be paying really close attention to the next couple financial reports that come up, or projections that come out from the DAS chief financial office. Those are going to be really important. And so we're going to be paying attention, but we're set up well. And so back to this budget, I do feel like that we're set up well. We have a fee structure in place. We do have a good ending balance that we're going to maintain going forward. We're set up well to weather some things. What the storm is, or if there's a storm or whatnot, we'll see. We're going to have to play that out. We're going to be as proactive as possible with and learn as much as we can along the way. But I do think we're set up well, and we'll see what happens.
Great, thank you. And again, what we talk about all the time: breathing. Knowing every day is going to be a new day, because we really are in unprecedented territory with what's going to happen with the federal budget and what they're trying to push back to the states. That's never been done before. So, and like you said, we'll deal with that as we get there. Now, some of my specific questions, back to your probably former role with ELS. So the changes that you described, 26, 28, 30.
Yep.
There will be obviously, like the Columbia River endorsement didn't go away. We added another one. We added ocean. So is that kind of clear? Because we all talk about a lot how complicated our licensing is, and how hard it is to check every box and make sure that you're actually legal. So will it be clear, like you've added this ocean thing, and that our deep sea fisher people need to get that? Because I don't think it is right now. So, I mean, are we thinking about those sorts of things? I imagine we are. So I'll let you answer.
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioner King, absolutely. I mean, we're going to be trying to message and get the word out on new products, new requirements, right now this fall. So we certainly are going to be working with our information education program on that, just making it crystal clear what the requirements are. We're working you mentioned ELS, getting things loaded in there, getting all the information in there, getting the products updated, that sort of thing. But certainly community outreach and outreach to our stakeholders is going to be part of that process to make sure that specific to the ocean endorsement, that folks are aware of that new requirement.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and the hatchery bond, because we've mentioned that a bunch of times. Can you explain, is that to fund our state hatcheries? Because most of our hatcheries are actually federal. Yeah. So, yeah, please answer.
Chair Wall, Commissioner King, yes. So that money is going to be used specifically for state-owned hatcheries. We have several projects lined up that we're still working through some of the details on, but yes, used for infrastructure improvements at our state-owned hatcheries.
Okay. And then can you explain a little bit this one-time Umpqua thing? So, like, the other two shut, but Umpqua didn't because it has this one time. But what happens after this one time, or do we know?
Yeah. Chair Wall, Commissioner King, we don't know, but the House Bill 5006 provided $1.4 million to basically continue what we have been doing the last couple of years at Rock Creek Hatchery with hatchery production in Umpqua. It buys us some time to continue to work with the Cow Creek tribe on what the future might look like for hatchery production in the basin, but there's no funding guarantee after this biennium. And so we'll be working hard on what the future looks like there in the Umpqua, and this buys us a little time.
Great, thank you for clarifying. And something that you mentioned, in fact, I had a great chat with our, I guess, acting West Region Manager, Mike G, yesterday about something near and dear to my heart, the Fred Meyer drainage. And if for those of you that don't know Portland, that's where the North Willamette District Office is in. It is literally in what's known as the Fred Meyer drainage. It's in a floodplain. There's a lot of issues with that office that we don't have time to go through it, but can you explain? So what is happening later this year? You said there's a bond and something's happening, construction, getting people out of the floodplain and barns and condemned buildings and the rest of it.
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioner King. So yeah, we have where our plans for a new office building at our Clackamas office are almost done, and we can start breaking ground on construction hopefully later this year, early winter. I'll try to be brief, but our Clackamas complex, I'll call it a complex, is like 13 or 14 buildings kind of spread throughout. Very old, 100-year-old. It's actually the site of one of the first like hatchery programs in the state, but very old facilities. A couple of buildings are no longer usable, and we've been working on finding a new office space for those impacted folks for a couple of years now. So there's a office building kind of at the top of the hill when you enter the facility that serves as like our administration building where we do customer service and some of our admin folks are housed. We're going to tear that down and construct a new 2-story, state-of-the-art, green office building that's going to be that's going to really meet the needs of our staff that are on site as well as our public. And so we're excited about that. There's still going to be some aging infrastructure where folks are housed in kind of down below. It doesn't totally solve the problem, but it'll be a big step in the right direction for that campus.
Okay, and so is that was it $5 million? Some sort of.
Yeah, so $5 million for this bond funding, and then the total cost is going to be $8 million or so. So we're talking it's big. I think 11,000 square feet. It's a big undertaking. So and as we found out, we've been finding out the last couple of years, construction is very expensive.
Well, it'll be good to get people out of the Fred Meyer drainage. So, and that is the office that services 50% of the state. So it'll be nice not to drive past pallets and geese and all the things that is Clackamas. The other thing I get hammered about every time I go to the coast, because I'm out there clam digging, can you explain this new POP 111, the harmful algal bloom? It's this early response team for what, and is it only the coast? Because, like the blooms are shutting the coast and it causes a show, and I know the troopers and me and everybody out there is getting hollered at. So, but this is hopefully going to address some of this.
Yeah. Chair Wall, Commissioner King, that's exactly right. So it establishes an early response team that's going to be proactively monitoring blooms. So that's a key piece here. So try to be less reactive and more proactive. So things don't catch us off guard. They're going to be able to go out and investigate things. And this really is for the coast, right? So like line of delineation would be, we have algal blooms that, well, right now in the Willamette, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's not going to be for that, but this is marine algal blooms specifically for, at the coast.
Okay, that's why I wanted to clarify, because you're right. It is big news right now, the huge bloom that is happening in the Willamette. And then my final question, thank you for answering all my questions. Like I said, when we talk about this, you're Kenneth, so you're doing a good job as Kenneth. Something that is near and dear to my heart, I think it will happen while I'm still a commissioner, and that's the website. You said that's going to be ready in 2027?
That's correct.
So when did it start and why is it taking so long? Can you explain that process and what will happen in 27? Are we finally done?
Yeah. Chair Wall, Commissioner King. Yeah. So we started, we started in 23-25, like halfway through 23-25. We hired a project manager last August. And so we've been working on the contracting requirements, like kind of building like what our requirements are going to be for the website. We have a team together, really trying to build it from the ground up and ensure like this is going to fully meet our needs for the agency, answering questions like, do we have one website, two websites, whatever? We're going to have one website. And frankly, what takes a long time is the contracting process. They're working with just for any enterprise information system or IT procurement takes a while. But like I said, we're about ready to sign a contract with the company that'll help us with content strategy and really figuring out the ultimate design, what goes on the website, that sort of thing. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be really pared down and sweet and succinct and efficient. I think we have like 90,000 pages on our existing website. We're going to aim for like 300 or maybe less. I mean, so we're talking that big of a reduction. So that's what's taking time is like, all right, like we have a whole project team. And we're trying to say, don't think of the existing website. Think of like, if you're starting from scratch, right? And you're ODFW, what do you want to have on your agency website? And it's hard to get in that frame of mind, right? Of like, because you know what's on our existing sites. So start from scratch and really be intentional with the content that we put in there. So yeah, we're gonna have folks helping us with that content strategy and really building a cohesive unit. I think the actual like once we get the contract and everything, it's not gonna take that long for someone to just build it. But it's the leading up to it, making sure we get it right and we're not missing anything. We also have to be beholden to all the statutory requirements we have for information online and that sort of thing. And so we're just working through that right now. And yes, end of this biennium is when. So sometime goal is spring of 27. We're up and live. Yeah.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Thank you. We have another question or comment from Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde.
Yep. Just thank you, Ken. It's incredible, right? Like this has been a lot of work, and I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate the stakeholders that helped get us there and the other staff that you work with. I mean, this is kind of miserable. I would think you'd be like, is this a job I really wanted? So what I was going to suggest to you is that since you went through so much of that information so quickly, I think you could have a future as a livestock auctioneer.
Hey, that sounds fun.
I'm just telling you, because I know the misery of like, oh, now we have to start over.
Yeah.
Like, really, didn't we just win, right? We have to keep going. Anyway, the only other thing I would say is that I am bummed that the 1% for wildlife didn't go through too, although I was also really heartened by the support for that. So I think it's very important for, we're a little behind some of the other states in terms of like funding these issues. So hopefully we'll get to a win on that. But anyway, just wanted to give you an out. I don't know what the landscape's like as far as hiring livestock auctioneers right now, but I think you.
Are you in need of one?
I can't. I mean, I don't have anything to sell and I don't think we in Brothers we could not match your current salary.
Oh.
And if I could, thank you, Vice Chair. If I could also just add mine, people have already said what I would have said, but to watch a legislative session, especially the budget parts, like just happened, to have the constituents and the agency and the kind of support that we got from the constituents is a different kind of legislative session than often happens. And so it's just remarkable to watch that happen. And it's great what it did for the agency and the work of the agency, including the 1%. And I hold out hope for that one. It will be really interesting to watch things like lottery and how much of OWEB's money is PCRF and those sorts of things. But we're in great shape now, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, commissioners, for just how engaged you are in all of these and the great questions. So I think that was just really very helpful conversation. And I just want to kind of just for perspective, because you lose track of time. So pretty much after you hired me, we had no deputies. And we were heading into a budget fee cycle. And I just have to say, again, shout out to Ken, but also to our administrators like, Mike Harrington, Bernadette, Graham Hudson, and Sarah Reif. I mean, honestly, they came together so beautifully. Ken thankfully stepped into this role, and just like, and then with Sean joining that, just really appreciate our leadership team and all the work they did. So with that, the last item that we have under the director's report is the sage grouse conservation assessment and strategy. And we're going to give you just a quick update on that. And we've got some folks joining us. I'll let y'all introduce yourselves as you get settled in.
Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, Director Colbert, members of the commission. I'm Bernadette Graham-Hudson. I'm the Wildlife Division Administrator. And before we launch into the presentation, I just wanted to set the stage a bit. You'll be hearing two sage-grouse-related presentations today. First, we'll be providing an update on the revision to our sage-grouse conservation assessment and strategy. And you may recall in December of 2023 in McMinnville, you approved the Oregon sage-grouse core and low-density habitat maps after pretty exhaustive process to update those. So this is a complementary effort to that, incorporating those maps into a revised plan that includes new science and focuses more on ODFW's role. So the information in the revised plan also relates to the, so we are presenting an update on the revision today, but we'll be bringing that back to you in September for your approval. But this information, we wanted to present that today because it relates also to the other sage-grouse topic on the agenda, which is the controlled hunt permit recommendations. So trying to link those two for you. And then I also wanted to make the connection to the State Wildlife Action Plan, which you'll be talking about after lunch. The sage-grouse are identified as a species of greatest conservation need. And this sage-grouse conservation assessment and strategy is a great example of a tiered down species-specific plan to highlight how ODFW manages sage-grouse to ensure their conservation. And this plan will be linked in the SWAP, the State Wildlife Action Plan, so that folks can find that information on the kind of species-specific management of sage-grouse in Oregon. So with that, I will turn it to Skylar and Michael. Thanks.
Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, members of the Commission, Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Michael Klein. I'm the Upland Game Bird Coordinator.
And for the record, my name is Skylar Vold. I'm the Sage-Grouse Conservation Coordinator.
Today, we're pleased to bring you an update on the Greater Sage-Grouse Conservation Assessment and Strategy for Oregon, which you might hear us refer to as the CAS, which is ODFW's plan for sage-grouse. Where do I point this? Right here? I'll just use the computer. Yes? Right here. Come on. Okay. Help. It's a nice picture, right? Yeah. We miss Keith Cole, he was such a great photographer. Now we're rolling. I remember this happening before where then you push the button 3 times and I'd like this to go back 1 slide. The CAS was last updated in 2011, and a lot has happened in the world of sage-grouse management in the last 14 years. In Oregon, in 2015, Governor Kate Brown adopted the Oregon Sage-Grouse Action Plan, which incorporated a lot of information from our 2011 CAS. But the action plan described everything that all partners are going to do for sage-grouse in Oregon. But we still need a current document that describes what ODFW's specific responsibilities are. So we asked ourselves, what are we going to do for sage-grouse under the ODFW mission? And our commitments come down to about 7 points. We are going to monitor populations. We're going to monitor habitat. We're going to measure conservation outcomes. We're going to collaborate with our partners. We're going to invest in conservation and research, implement the mitigation rules, and manage according to the ODFW mission. Carefully advancing the slide. We've made several important updates to the plan that incorporate the best available science, which a lot has been learned since 2011. And we also need to reflect the current state of our sage grouse and sagebrush partnerships. So today we're just going to highlight a few of those most important changes, specifically our new population model and our new population and habitat objectives, which are in OAR.
Thanks, Michael. So first we'll discuss one of the first big main changes to the CAS, which is the way that we update or the way that we estimate our sage grouse populations. So in March of 2024, we contracted with the USGS to help us improve our sage grouse population model. And this new model requires repeated surveys to generate population estimates, and the time frame that has an adequate sample size of repeat surveys is 2017 to the present. So using the results from the new model, we were then able to back calculate to 1980. The figure on this slide shows Oregon's statewide population estimate from 1980 to 2024, where the estimated true abundance is on the y-axis and the year is on the x-axis. That top line shows the estimates from the new model, and the bottom line shows the estimates from the previous model. So you can see that our estimates are approximately 20 to 25,000 birds higher than under the previous model. And the main reason that we see these higher estimates under the new model is due to three main differences between the two models. First, the new model accounts for variation in detection probability, which is the biologist's ability to detect sage grouse on the leks in attendance. And the second is the new model accounts for variable male attendance to leks. So we know that only about 60% of the males actually attend leks daily. And lastly, the new model accounts for presently unknown leks on the landscape. So the previous model assumed detection probability was constant, and it didn't account for the proportion of males that don't attend leks. Also, the previous model didn't account for unknown leks on the landscape, even though we know that every time we survey for new leks, we find new leks or shifts in lek locations. In the previous version of ODFW's CAS, the statewide goal for our sage grouse population was set at the 2003 level as a baseline between a trough and a peak in the population cycle. And then during the current update to the CAS, we kept 2003 as the baseline year and updated the population goal to reflect the population estimate under this new model. So the updated goal based on the 2003 breeding population is 53,000 birds. But it's important to note that even though now we know that we have more birds now than we previously thought, the population trend is still the same. So for example, from 1985 to 2019, which are two low points in the overall estimate, the overall population trend is still a 40% decline. So we're not moving the goalpost here. Our update to Section 3 also includes a pack scale trend analysis, which the previous version of the CAS didn't include. PACs, PACs, are sage grouse priority areas for conservation. So these are the biologically significant units for managing Oregon sage grouse populations. The figure on this slide shows the abundance index of sage grouse counted in the Steens pack from 1980 through 2024. And note that this is not the estimated true abundance that we presented on the previous slide, but rather this is an index of abundance that generally relies on just male counts, which is why you see the y-axis here in the hundreds and not the thousands. It's important to note for sage grouse, population trends are assessed from trough to trough in the population cycle. So for the Steens pack, troughs in the cycle occurred during 1985, 1996, 2008, 2013, and 2020. You can see that the Steens pack had a significant population decline since 1980, but it has been nearly stable from 1996 to 2020. We would like to see stable and ideally increasing population trends for all of our sage grouse populations in Oregon. So our recommendations from Section 3 are to update the sage grouse population goal and management objectives in Division 140. This is one of the policies that you will be reviewing for approval in September. Specifically, ODFW will manage sage grouse to maintain or enhance their statewide distribution and abundance, oscillating around the 2003 population level, approximately 53,000 birds over the next 50 years. Additionally, ODFW will manage populations to maintain stable or increasing population trends statewide and at the pack scale. And again, population trends are assessed from nadir to nadir or trough to trough in the population cycle. The new population model also has implications for the way that we manage sage grouse harvest. Sage grouse harvest management has existed in a few different places, including the 5-year upland framework, but we want to be clear about how we allocate harvest permits and open and closed hunt units in the updated CAS, and how this updated harvest management will utilize the new population model. Even though we know we have more birds under the new model, our intent is to stay very conservative and keep permits in the same range as they were before the new model, while still striving to get adequate wing sample sizes. So we now have the ability to look at our populations at the pack scale, which will give us more clarity on what's happening within each hunt unit. In this section, we also detail all the different considerations beyond the 5% maximum harvest allocation when recommending permit numbers, which include potential impacts of recent fires, poor hunter success, isolated populations, and populations that seem to be on a different trajectory than their neighboring populations. And next, we're going to talk about updating the way that we monitor our sage grouse habitat. So the first step to this was already accomplished when the Commission adopted the new core and low density maps in December of 2023, and then LCDC, the Land Conservation Development and Development Commission, adopted into rule in January of 2025. These maps and methods were used to make the maps that will now live in the updated CAS, and we took these new map boundaries and evaluated the state of the habitat within these new boundaries.
Thank you, Skylar. Next, we're going to take a look at the quality and quantity of our sage grouse habitat. First, we want to introduce you to a major improvement in the way that we look at sage grouse habitat, which we call ecostates. These are based off of remote sensing technology and habitat models that are very good at predicting where to find sage grouse. What we're looking for in these maps is dark green, light green, blue coloration. We know that sage grouse are very likely to persist in these habitats, especially if we have at least a minimum of 70% coverage. So back in 1990, that's the map on the far left, we exceeded that 70% threshold at over 84% of healthy sage grouse habitat. By 2003, which to remind you is where our population objective was set, sage grouse populations were still in pretty good shape, but we had lost 10% of those very good categories. By 2023, we were down to 60%. And this is due to the combination of non-typical wildfires, invasive annual grasses, and conifer encroachment exacerbated by a very long drought cycle. And so you can see that in the 2023 map, the reds, the browns have taken over, not range wide, but it hasn't been an even takeover by invasive annual grasses in particular. That's the red, but it's not a pretty picture, right? There is still some good habitat, but. Related to our OARs, our previous OARs agreed that 70% sagebrush cover was a good objective, but we want to update the rules to allow that measure to use the ecostate categories rather than sagebrush structure classes, which is actually really difficult to measure at the range-wide scale. So the proposed rule will also refer to the pack scale rather than BLM district boundaries, which we believe will be a much more biologically relevant yardstick. As we wrap up the presentation and wait for the next slide to load up, I do want to highlight that ODFW is just part of a vast landscape of partners and partnerships that are working to conserve sage grouse. The plan details our commitments to those partnerships. ODFW brings experts to the table that have local knowledge. We can plug in at all levels to provide that knowledge, capacity, and other resources, including some funding. The plan includes research needs, which help us manage our sage grouse under the best known science, and we benefit when those projects take place in Oregon. Actual conservation really happens at the local scale, and it is important to emphasize the need to support our sage grouse local implementation teams, our LITs, which are now led by SageCon under the action plan. But ODFW will still provide direction, financial support, and subject matter experts to those local teams.
Thank you. I think we have a couple questions for,
I think I have maybe one more slide. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the next steps, that's all. And you probably had questions about that. That's okay. So as we bring the updated plan into the home stretch, I did want to highlight our public outreach. Starting with our external advisory team. So we have a team of experts that has helped guide this process, partners from federal and state agencies, research institutions, nonprofits, counties, as well as ranchers, landowners, permittees. This team helped guide our thinking and provided feedback throughout this 2-year process. We've shared our progress via a website where people can see the draft chapters and upload comments or contact us directly. We've hosted webinars to our internal staff and to the public, which was advertised through a news release. And after today, we will consider all the comments we've received and present the final draft for adoption at the September Commission meeting, where we can talk in more detail about some of the other major updates to the plan. So with that, we are happy to take any questions you might have.
now we have a couple questions. Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, and then Commissioner Labhart, and then it looks like Commissioner King. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, you guys. I just always appreciate when you guys are presenting, because I feel like you guys are killing it all the time, trying to bring good work to the table. I guess I have a couple comments that I completely agree with you. You know, in highlighting conifer, juniper, wildfire, weeds, but I'm also curious about how you're looking. I'm surprised you haven't added fragmentation to that list. Is that, am I too late?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde, fragmentation is definitely one of the major threats on the landscape. When we look at what causes conifer encroachment, wildfires, and invasive annual grasses, when you start parsing up the landscape and you lose your ecological integrity, and that's when things like cheatgrass can really take over. And so within the plan, we absolutely address the threat of fragmentation. It is a problem. We're happy that we have our mitigation rules, which are regulatory and make it difficult for large development to happen on the landscape without a net positive for sage grouse.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And I just hope, you know, it is one of those areas where I wish we could communicate better to the, you know, especially the urban population in Oregon about what healthy rangeland looks like, and have them fall in love with this idea of like, hey, these dollars that we spend cutting juniper, these dollars we spend and invest in these rangelands and keeping them open, and also taking seriously climate change and the huge issues we're having with these catastrophic fires in sage grouse country. It matters. I know, little voice here, little voice for the southeast parts of Oregon. Anyway, I'll stop there. I'm glad you guys are coming back in August or September or whatever month that is.
Next, thank you. Commissioner Labhart.
Thank you. So I have a question on the model. So the graph that you showed on the new model versus the previous model had a pretty significant increase in the estimated population. Simple question, are other states adopting that new model also?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart, other states have transitioned to similar models. I'd say across the board, accounting for imperfect detection is really at the forefront. So we know that we're not seeing as many birds as are actually there. And that's very important when we're modeling populations, whether it be birds or other wildlife. So other states are transitioning to a similar method, I would say. But this is definitely at the forefront.
Commissioner King, and then I have a couple questions.
Thank you, Chair Wall. Thank you all for your report. And thank you, Skylar. I did not remember your name, but I remembered that epic sage grouse pen from McMinnville. So thank you for giving Marine Division a run for the money. So I'm going to channel a bit of our chair here. I think I understand, but I think this needs to maybe be communicated better. Like, we look at these, these population models, even though this one looks improved, they're still doing this. It looks like salmon, it looks like mule deer. They all look the same. Like, you kind of don't want to see them. They're clearly in epic decline. Why do we hunt them? So I mean, I think that explaining that better would go a long way. So I will and I know that's a segue into like your next thing, but and I see your lovely sheet where you talk about, natural mortality, more causes were natural causes were more deaths than hunting. Like, I get it, but like, when you see things that look like this, then you ask, why are we making it worse? So I will let you guys.
Chair Wall, Commissioner King, it's a very fair question, and certainly one that we're used to answering.
Sure.
I think it's important not to oversimplify. We don't hunt all of our sage grouse. We hunt within populations where we can stay within that natural mortality rate. So we don't hunt isolated populations. We don't hunt populations where there's less than 100 males in consecutive years. We're very careful about that because we, as managers, we feel a great sense of responsibility and not causing any negative impact to our populations. And so, we rely on science. We rely on the math to make sure that we're operating in a very conservative place where we can still get the information that we need from our populations, data that we couldn't collect in any other way that goes into this population model. How would we know what our sex ratios are? How would we know what our nest success was? How would we know what our age ratios are? We get that information from our wings, and that goes into the population model that helps us understand from year to year what's going on with that population. There's no way we could collect that information otherwise. Let's also take a nod to our sage grouse hunters who are also conservationists, and they very much appreciate the fact that they have this opportunity, and they our wing return rate is in the 70% range, which is unheard of in terms of survey response. They're actually mailing their wings in. The poor the Hines post office, I feel sorry for them sometimes dealing with all of the wings that come through there, but they're good sports. And so by having constituents that appreciate sage grouse, we have whether they're carrying binoculars or shotguns, that's another group of people who appreciate and want to conserve this bird, and I feel like that's important. Maintaining the game bird status of sage grouse is also important. Frankly, it pays for Skylar's job. We use upland validations from hunters to pay for the conservation of sage grouse at ODFW. So those are strictly hunter dollars. And so if sage grouse were not a game bird, we wouldn't have the ability to do that. And so we feel like it's most important to just operate in a very responsible way within that natural mortality rate. And as you'll see in our next presentation that we've zeroed out a hunt because we were concerned about wildfire impacts. We hope that that's not a forever zero out, but but we are being very, very careful.
Yeah, great, thank you. Just to follow on, I agree. I understand. There just needs to be, I think, a more eloquent way of explaining, or a more obvious, maybe with our new website, like hunters as conservation. That some of the biggest conservation organizations in this country are Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, etc. They're hunting. So, I mean, I think there seems to be like that barrier in communication and barriers in people's mind, and that they think that they're adding to the problem. They're actually part of the solution. They care just as passionately. And when I look at these numbers, I think a lot about, and I say this all over Portland, like, you know, everybody thinks it's the hunters that are threatening the mule deer. And I'm like, no, it's you in your car. You're hitting them on the highways. That's the problem. So, and it makes me also think about our vice chair. Like, we need to talk about these environmental threats that dominate, like these big mega fires that are damaging their habitat, and the habitat of that, quote, desert, that there's nothing out there. There's amazing things out there like sage grouse. So I think we just need to, so many things that we talk about and that we understand, we don't have that bigger, larger understanding. But one thing we'll get to later is sage grouse are in the swamp. So, and Bernadette and I had a great chat about this yesterday. So I think, you know, like giving it that dual lens, like, you know, that a lot of people from all sorts of different directions are trying to address this problem, because this map is just disturbing. That thing that you showed me, this one where it went from 85% to 60%. Good Lord. So, like, you know, you just, there's a lot to be done. And I think things like this can kind of help push that needle of awareness, because I think that there's a lack thereof, because it's just so distant. We don't see it. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellbrink. And then I have a couple questions.
Yeah, thank you,
okay.
Chair Wall. Just a quick observation. You know, like a lot of other Oregonians, pretty much everything I know about sage grouse begins and ends right here. So just want to stress the importance of, you know, when we're making a decision on these, that it's great to get informed, and really appreciate your always really great presentation on, and it really helps those of us that don't know much about sage grouse.
Thank you. I would like to echo the appreciation for getting the straight up information the way you presented, in terms of knowing that we are recognizing there are more birds on the landscape, and how are we mapping that, and how are we looking at it, and how are we accounting for it, and also that we are still 40% down, and saying it out loud so that everybody knows the situation we're in. My two quick questions are, one is, it looks like if you look at these numbers, real close tracking between that trend line that says 40% and how much habitat we have. That is what you're saying almost, right? The other one I have is, when you say that we are managing to the 53,000 and that those numbers are in OA, what's it mean that we're managing to 53,000 from the 003 numbers?
Chair Wall, to your second question, we know that game bird populations oscillate, right? So when we're managing to 53,000, oscillating around 53,000, we know that ideally the population will be up on years in the peak. So maybe it'll be up to 60,000, and then maybe it could be down to 45 or 48,000. But we really don't want to see populations generally declining from nadir to nadir or trough to trough in the population cycle. So from 1996 to the next trough in the cycle, ideally that would be 0% decline, or ideally an increase, right? So that's really what we're looking at. Having a specific number in OAR is necessary so that we can have a number and manage for that number, but recognizing game bird populations do oscillate.
Does it mean that we are recognizing or acknowledging, or whatever word you want to put on it, that the trend line is what it is, and we're not looking for a trend line back up? We're not counting on a trend line back up.
Chair Wall, I would say that we would strive for, at least in the short term, to have that trend line be stable or ideally increasing from those from those recent natures. So there was a 2016 or 2015 trough in the population cycle. If our next trough in the cycle is a 0% decline, or ideally like a 5 to 10% increase, we would be very happy. In the long term, yeah, it would be great if we could manage for a stable or increasing population trend as well.
Do you see Dallas?
Commissioner Halder-Freeze.
Great. Chair Wall, can you see if I raise my hand? It wasn't highlighting on my end, so I don't know if.
I see it now. It wasn't there before, but now
Okay.
it is up in the corner. So we'll watch
Okay.
more carefully for it.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to add, it's good to see you, Skylar, from a past life when I got to work closely with Skylar in his previous role and a previous role that I had. But what I wanted to add too is there are neat things happening with this threat-based modeling as far as how we are now taking that kind of model that has been in the works for several years now and how that can apply to actual change and management actions on the landscape, which is a big thing. Like, we use models all the time, but we don't oftentimes have a way to actually translate to how we make change on the landscape. And in many of these areas, just maintaining the habitat that we have is an uphill battle. And then understanding where there's losses and where there's areas that we need to protect. And so where we can really focus our strategies. And this helps just in my world when I work with ranchers and landowners in these areas about creating plans and knowing what they can do on their part to improve and maintain their land. So I just want to highlight that because it's a really, I think more and more it's becoming a more effective tool, and there's other partners, OSU ARS and others who are utilizing this type of spatial data and actually drilling down to what it means on the ground. So thank you all.
Thank you.
So thank you, commissioners, again for all of your attention, and that concludes the director's report.
Thank you all.
Thank
for
you,
the-
Skylar. Michael.
Then we will go to public forum. I'm sorry, first temporary rules. So right back to you, Director, and then public forum.
Okay. All right, commissioners, you have 14 temporary rules in your packet for your consideration. All of them really are related to fish division activities. 10 of them, as is typical, related to kind of our in-season management of the Columbia River, both commercial, tribal, and recreational fisheries. 2 related to some updated federal regulations and kind of a fix-it. And then 1 that would become effective Monday, which is changing the bag limit on some bottom fish. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, commissioners, or is there a motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwell. Yeah, one quick question. I know somebody got a hold of me yesterday and said that they spent hours trying to find details on commercial openers and some of this stuff anyway. And is that always available on the website somewhere? They just didn't find it?
You know, honestly, I would love to know more about kind of what they were thinking about specifically, but
I believe they were trying to find when the actually commercial gillnet openers were on the Columbia main stem.
okay.
And they said I think they talked to several different they started in Salem and ended up in Clackamas and back and forth. And he said he finally gave up, he couldn't find what he was looking for. And
It
I didn't know where to send it.
is, but we can take a look at making sure that it's a little bit more readily available. So thanks for sharing that.
If we're ready for a motion?
Yes.
I move to ratify the 12 temporary rules set forth on the August 15, 2025 agenda. Yeah. 14. Okay, that's right.
It's a misprint on that.
Yeah, I see that. The 14.
Is there a second? Oh, thank you. Been moved and seconded to ratify the 14 temporary rules as was just read into the record. Could we have a thumb vote on this one, please? It's unanimous, Michelle. Thank you all. Thank you, Director. And so now we can move to public forum. And we have 5 people, one of whom I don't have a last name for, but Janie Gonzalez, Janine Comstock, Jonathan Schlack, Lauren, and Megan Kemp. So can we, how many are, Michelle, you know how many are in the room?
Hello, I'm Hani Gonzalez. I'm virtual. I don't know about everyone else.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for taking the time to meet. As I mentioned, my name's Hani. I live in Eugene, Oregon. Recently, I found several possum joeys after their mother had been struck by and killed by a car. I immediately worked to save them, contacting multiple wildlife rehabilitators, only to be told that because they are classified as invasive in Oregon, they cannot be assisted. They suggested I bring them in so they wouldn't suffer, but that unfortunately, due to the classification, they would have to euthanize them per policy. That moment kind of left me shocked, not just due to what occurred, but at the realization of what this classification means in practice. So by ODFW's own definition, invasive species are non-native organisms that cause economic or environmental harm and are capable of spreading to new areas. While it is true that possums are non-native, the evidence does not support categorizing them as invasive in the same way as we think of highly destructive species. So possums have been present in the Pacific Northwest for over a century. In Washington, our neighboring state with similar climate, ecosystem, possums have been reclassified as unprotected, meaning rehabilitators may care for them without automatic euthanasia. Here in Oregon, they do not rapidly displace native species. Instead, they fill a scavenger niche, cleaning up fallen fruit, carrion, and even trash. They are preyed upon by native predators such as coyotes, owls, and hawks, and basically have become functionally integrated into most local food webs. Like many omnivorous mammals, they may cause localized disturbance in sensitive nesting or wetland areas, but their overall ecological footprint is modest at best. There's little evidence that they cause the kind of widespread economic or environmental harm that justify the invasive label. Unlike many invasive mammals, they are not significant predators of native species on a scale that threatens population. And I think this is where proportionality matters. ODFW applies removal efforts to invasive species like fish, like smallmouth bass, because of the severe, well-documented harm they cause to native salmon. And in those cases, strong removal pressure is warranted, but that same level of harm has not been demonstrated for possums, yet they carry the same invasive label and are guaranteed euthanasia. I would also like to respectfully point out that in the cases of smallmouth bass, removal is prioritized in sensitive areas to protect native species, but management is tailored to the threat level and location, not blanket eradication. That kind of proportional targeted management could also apply to possums, controlling them in sensitive habitats if needed, while allowing rehab and release elsewhere. Reclassifying them as naturalized or unprotected would not mean ignoring potential impacts, but would mean allowing targeted management in sensitive areas while making rehabilitation and release possible for injuries or orphan animals. I read through the communications, and it's astounding how much efforts has gone to people reaching out to you guys. I think public attitude towards possums has definitely shifted. Increasingly, people recognize them as gentle, non-aggressive scavengers that help clean the environment. They're not vectors of rabies, and they pose minimal threat to human or pets. Many look towards ODFW as a pinnacle of knowledge, and labeling them as invasive, I think, reinforces the unnecessary fear and undermines public support for more urgent invasive species control efforts. The joeys I found, they never had a chance to grow, contribute to the ecosystem, or even live. It was not due to a predator, disease, natural circumstance, but instead due to human activity, abruptly ending their mother's life. While these things happen, and I understand, I also believe it's our responsibility to help rehabilitate instead of promptly ending their life. It was a direct result of a policy choice.
Jenny, excuse me, if you could wrap up, you have used your time, and we're real short on time today, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to say I'm proud to live in a state with a strong program of protecting natural resources. And I don't think where we stand on this issue speaks to our values. So I respectfully urge ODFW to reconsider the classification of the possum and align it with current science. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Janine Comstock, and then Jonathan Schlack.
Hey, Jenny pretty much said most of kind of how I feel as well, a lot of the facts, but I'm here mostly because this subject was brought to my attention, and I think most Oregonians aren't even aware that they're being like massively euthanized. which is very frustrating because that means that our tax dollars are going to something that is not only useless, but harmful. And I'm just struggling to understand why we are lagging behind the states that are around us, like California and Washington and even Idaho, on this topic, because this is an animal that has been in North America for over 100 years. So I'm really struggling to understand why this has not been shifted and why this policy hasn't changed. I'll keep it short again, but I really wanted to make my stance known. I feel that it's an extremely important topic. And I do feel that I will continue to educate Oregonians about this topic because I can say, whether it's the Nextdoor app, whether it's in person, people are honestly shocked to learn that they're being massively euthanized. And so I feel like this will shift over time. Not to mention, there are already and I don't know any, but underground rehabbers that exist. This is just a waste of money. It's a waste of funding, a waste of money, and it's frustrating at a time when the current administration right now is taking funding away from our state for a variety of reasons. And then we're over here doing something completely pointless. And honestly, with rehabbers, they operate primarily privately. So I don't see a reason why it can't go back to rehabbers being able to support this animal. It's pretty much where I'm at.
Thank you. And just so you know, the people that are speaking in public forum, this is a chance for us to hear testimony that we wouldn't otherwise hear on ideas or issues that are not in front of us right now. So it's appreciated very much. The other three people who were going to testify are not online, and so we will go to that. That was the end of public forum then, and we'll go to the.
My partner, Lauren Kelly, will be here. He's just, unless you guys really need to move forward, it's fine. But
yeah, sorry, I'm here right now.
There.
I'm on the call.
Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to chime in as well. I know that this is currently an issue that's been going on, but we just want to chime in and mention that, we've been looking into a lot of the laws and the regulations around it, and we just have a lot of concerns around the current status of why they're considered invasive. And it doesn't seem like we can find as much information on that as to why it's current today in our current location. So we were just trying to make awareness and hopefully see if there's any ways to change those, just because again, they are at this point, I would say compared to other wildlife in our area, coyotes or even raccoons that come into our yards, they are the least harmful and cause the least amount of damage. So hopefully there's something we can do, and we're always here to talk about and hopefully find ways to advocate for changing the legality around it.
Thank you.
Can I actually ask a question?
Yes, and then we'll stop. Yes, go ahead.
I'm wondering why sugar gliders and ferrets and animals that are not native are allowed to be pets, but then we have an animal that's been here for over 100 years that is considered invasive. I'm struggling. I think when I think about it and I research it, that's something that comes to my mind. And I'm wondering if there's any answer in regards to, I guess, the differential in treatment.
Yeah. Janine, what we generally do with questions like that is make sure that you get connected with staff and so that they can give you an answer to that. And I think you have Michelle Tate's phone number, and so we will make that connection to get you an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you all, and we will go ahead with the minutes for the last meeting. Actually, we have two sets of minutes from June 13th and July 11th.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the minutes for June 13th and July 11th, 2025 meeting minutes and continued authority to correct for grammar and punctuation.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the amended June 13th and July 11th, 2025 meeting minutes. As was just read into the record, let's do a thumb vote on this one, if you will. And it looks like everybody, Michelle. Thank you all. And we will go to, it seems like I'm rushing a bit. We have a time certain for the awards ceremony, and so we are going to try to do two more exhibits. So we will move right to the Sage the people we just heard from, 2025 sage grouse controlled hunt permit numbers, and we will also do Exhibit C before 11 if we can. So if you'll introduce yourselves and go right ahead.
Wait, oh, okay. Thanks, Roxy. Good morning again, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, members of the Commission, Director Colbert. I'm Bernadette Graham-Hudson, and I'm the Wildlife Division Administrator. And this is the second part that we alluded to earlier, where we will be presenting on our sage grouse controlled hunt permit numbers. And so I'll just let Michael and Skylar take it away again.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, members of the Commission, Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Michael Klein, Upland Game Bird Coordinator.
And for the record, my name is Skylar Vold, Sage Grouse Conservation Coordinator.
We're here to bring you the proposed adjustments to the 2025 sage grouse controlled permit hunt. We'll present findings from the 2025 spring lek surveys that were not yet available when the Commission approved the sage grouse hunt in April. And propose some adjustments to available permits based on this information and our adaptive management approach. At the April 2025 meeting, the Commission approved a 9-day season from September 6th to the 14th with a season limit of 2 sage grouse, and we set the permit numbers based on the previous year. We recommended these permit levels be revisited after the spring lek survey analysis was complete because we annually adapt permit levels based on the health of our sage grouse populations. I feel like we can kind of almost skip this slide, Commissioner King, because we talked about this. Sage grouse are not a listed species, but a species in which we do have concerns about long-term declines due primarily to changes in habitat. Oregon's controlled permit season is considered a model for other states in how to responsibly conduct a hunt that has minimal impact to populations while still obtaining a sufficient number of wings to estimate our population demographics. The permit numbers are adapted year to year based on spring lek counts and other indicators. Sage grouse benefit from their status as a game bird, which comes with a dedicated funding source from Upland Game Bird Validations, which is used to pay for management, lek surveys, research, and habitat projects. We know that habitat conservation is the key to sustaining healthy sage grouse populations, and we manage harvest to have a minimal effect. The design of the sage grouse hunt is guided by several documents, primarily the Sage Grouse Action Plan, the Oregon Sage Grouse Action Plan, and the ODFW Sage Grouse Plan, which we talked about earlier, both of which inform the 5-year upland hunting framework, which we talked about in April. Hunting is specifically addressed in the action plan, acknowledging it can be conducted without impact to the population. And these are the guidelines that we follow today. Specifically, the department sets permit numbers to allow harvest of less than 5% of the fall population, does not hunt isolated populations or in units with less than 100 males in consecutive years. Hunting must remain consistent with conservation and long-term viability of populations, and it's designed to minimize effects on declining populations. These guidelines are all based on published research and supported by WAFWA.
Thanks, Michael. So we calculate the number of recommended sage grouse hunt permits each July following the process that's outlined on this slide. This process relies on data from our spring lek counts, hunter harvest wing collections, and hunter harvest surveys. These calculations ensure that the harvest rates are below 5% of the estimated fall population, taking into account average hunter participation and success rates. First, we calculate the projected fall population by adding up the number of adult males and females, and then the number of juveniles in the population. The number of males comes from the spring lek counts, and the number of females is calculated by applying age ratios from the hunter harvest wing data. The number of chicks used to be determined by summer brood counts, but we had concerns with the low sample sizes of those data, so now we use a very conservative estimator of 0.5 chicks per hen, which is much lower than what we find from our wing collections. Once we have a conservative estimate of the fall population, we calculate the 5% allowable harvest for each of the WMUs, which is well within the range research has shown will not contribute additive mortality, and our average annual harvest is actually closer to 2 or 3%. After calculating the 5% allowable harvest, we apply the average hunter participation rate and hunter success rate for the area to get the basic permit recommendation for each WMU. And then next, we consider other factors such as wildfire, impaired habitat, or populations that are trending poorly compared to their neighboring populations when we're setting these permit numbers. And then lastly, we consult with all of the district biologists to make sure that they agree with the recommended number of permits in each wildlife management unit. So overall, we saw an increase of 17.8% in our sage-grouse breeding population in 2025, which was very exciting. This map shows the spring breeding population trends of each of our sage-grouse priority areas for conservation, or PACs, in the bright green, yellow, and red. You can see how the PACs are located within each of the sage-grouse hunt units in gray and light green. The units in green are recommended to be open for the 2025 hunt, and those in gray are recommended to be closed. One change to note here is that we used the temporary rule to close the Sylvies unit to sage-grouse hunting this year due to concerns with a wildfire which burned through the unit last summer, and that area we found out receives most of the hunting pressure. We have not yet had the ability to fully assess the impact of that wildfire on this population, but we'll continue to closely monitor this population going forward. So again, the statewide trend was up 17.8% this spring, with the majority of the PACs showing strong increases and only a few PACs showing population declines. The steepest decline was in the Baker PAC, which is in the far northeastern corner of Oregon sage-grouse range. The Baker population has been struggling for some time, unfortunately, and it is not hunted. Next, we saw a small decline in the Beatty's PAC, which is one of two PACs that make up the Beatty's Butte Hunt Unit. There was a wildfire that burned through some core habitat on the Heart Mountain National Antelope Refuge last summer. Heart Mountain is closed to sage-grouse hunting. The other PAC in this unit, the Pueblos Mountain PAC, is thriving with an increase of over 23% this year. Other concerning PAC trends you can see on the map are within the Owyhee unit, which did not experience the same increases as other areas. This area has been struggling with wildfires and habitat issues for some time. Also, you can see the impacts from the 2024 wildfires in the North Beulah unit. Aside from these areas, we were very glad to see most of Oregon sage-grouse populations did see an increase this spring. So this next map overlays the trend map with the 2024 wildfire perimeters. And sadly, the 2024 wildfire season in Oregon was record-breaking. Primarily, those fires were in eastern Oregon's rangelands. Last year, we preemptively reduced permits in the Owyhee and Beulah units due to concern over fire impacts of these populations. So we have several additional indicators that last year's conditions were a net positive for sage-grouse. We previously discussed the value of our wing collections in understanding the structure of our sage-grouse populations. From hunter harvested and returned wings, we can find age and sex ratios and estimate nest success and peak hatch date in each of these wildlife management units that are open to hunting. This information would be either impossible to collect without our controlled hunt or prohibitively expensive. So based on last fall sample of 310 wings, we found average productivity was 2.25 chicks per hen, which exceeds our long-term average of 1.48 chicks per hen. In the literature, 2.25 chicks per hen is recognized as an increasing population trend in the Great Basin. Additionally, last fall, harvest was comprised of 55% juveniles, which exceeded our long-term average of 47% juveniles. These are one of the highest indicators of production in our sage-grouse population since we started collecting these data in 1982. Additionally, we can understand the mechanism of population change from our wing data. So from these data, we know that we've had 3 years of above average productivity in most of our populations, which is likely driven by increased precipitation. And we're seeing the results of multiple years of compounding above average productivity in our spring lek attendance, where the 2025 population estimate was the highest since 2017. This next slide shows the comparison between our sage-grouse breeding population estimates and the number of hunt permits allocated during the 2017 to 2024 period. In 2017, ODFW offered 800 sage grouse hunt permits in the WMU's open to harvest. This number decreased to 630 by 2020, and then increased between 2021 and 2024 to reflect increases in our sage grouse populations, which you can see from this figure. And note that the estimated population in 2025 is about 51,000 birds, which is higher than the 2018 estimate of 44,000 sage grouse and actually closer to the 2017 estimate of 53,000. So the number of permits proposed for 2025 reflects this population increase of approximately 18%, conservatively raising the total number of permits by 4%. Okay, so based on all of this information, here are recommendations for adjusting the number of sage grouse permits for this fall, where the column on the right here represents proposed adjustments to the permits. Those numbers in green are the hunt units, which we recommend increased permits from the number approved in April. Those numbers in red are the units where we recommend decreases, and those numbers in black represent the units that we do not recommend any changes. The proposed increases in the Malheur River, Trout Creek Mountains, East Whitehorse, Steens Mountain, North Wagon Tire, and Steens.
Warner.
Oh, sorry, and Warner reflect the 2025 population increases of 12 to 31% in packs within each of these hunt units. Next, although the population in the Beulah hunt unit were up, we propose to maintain the reduction in permit numbers that were put in place through the 2024 temporary rule as a conservative measure due to potential wildfire effects from the 2024 wildfires. In the Beatty's Butte hunt unit, we recommend no change from 2024, even though one of the populations in this hunt unit, the Pueblos pack, was up 23% in 2025. The Beatty's pack, as I mentioned earlier, is recovering from a large wildfire on the Hart Mountain National Antelope Refuge from summer of 2024. In the Owyhee unit, we recommend a slight reduction due to continued concerns with impaired habitat, which is contributing to these populations not performing as well as adjacent populations. And then lastly, we recommend continuing the Sylvie's closure that was recently enacted through temporary rule until we have a better understanding of the impacts of that 2024 Falls wildfire. So these proposed adjustments bring our total number of permits up from 670 to 695, a 4% increase, to reflect our highest population estimate of sage grouse since 2017. And with that, I will conclude the presentation and take any questions.
Well, I'm waiting to see if there are any questions. I have to tell you, even though I know that you just said that we still have the 40% down trend line, it does feel good to at least see some population increases. We don't get enough of that. And it looks like all we need to do is make sure you get enough rain. So we'll see what.
It sure helps. Yeah.
I have a question. In the report, you talk about no more than 5% of the projected fall population in as many as 12 of 21 of the units. Does that mean in the other 9? What's that mean for the other 9?
Chair Wall, that just means that those are the units that are actually open for the hunt. That's so.
Got it.
So
okay.
Sage grouse exist in 21 units, or I can't remember what the number was. You said
12 of 21.
Yeah, 12.
Okay.
Sage grouse exist in those units, but of course we don't hunt them across the Oregon range.
So this wasn't just a trick to see if we read the report. Just checking. Other question? Let's see, Commissioner Spellbrink, and then it looks like Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Wall. Just a question, just for my knowledge. When these fires go through sagebrush or sage grouse country, I'm guessing they probably kill the birds and destroy the habitat. Is there what's the downstream effect like years later? Does the habitat come back better, worse, or what are the effects?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, you're spot on. We're not sure if the wildfires actually kill too many sage grouse unless it comes through when the chicks are very young, but it really is that habitat impairment. So especially at lower elevation sites, when those wildfires go through and they burn very hot, what often comes back first is cheatgrass and even worse, medusa head in some cases, which can really deplete the quality of that habitat. So once the habitat quality is depleted, we see reduced reproductive rates, nest success, chick survival, sometimes even adult female survival, which really drive those population decreases that we see in those areas. In higher elevation locations such as the Trout Creek Mountains and Steens Mountains and probably this Heart Mountain wildfire, we won't see the negative impacts or as significant of negative impacts of those wildfires. Sometimes those wildfires can regenerate the habitat and it will come back even better because it is in a higher elevation site, better precipitation. Those sagebrush plants will recover as opposed to the low elevation sites.
We do have 2 other questions and then we need to get testimony. So
there's
if
testimony.
we do a
Okay.
quick one.
I didn't realize there's testimony. Sorry. Thank you, Chair Wall. And thank you guys for the report. I think just to be like barn door obvious for all of us that are on the west side, sage grouse need sagebrush, right? Okay. Okay. So the question then is, because I know there is a huge amount of just chatter around how do we get sagebrush back? You know, one of the things that I, have to kind of open my mind up wide when I am out east and looking at this tiny little bush that's 100 years old. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on. I know, like say, like Nature Conservancy and groups like that they're trying to do things with pellet and seed and all this sort of thing. Like, how do you go in after a wildfire and give the sagebrush a chance? Is there any new knowledge on that or any new goings on or things we're trying in Oregon to kind of bring that back so that we don't just get the cheatgrass and the Medusa and all the awful?
Chair Wall, Commissioner King, you're really at the crux of the problem. It is sagebrush takes a while to recover. It's slow growing, and when you have something very competitive like cheatgrass come in, it's really important to get on top of that. There's some new herbicide products like Rejuvra that are pre-emergent and allow what you really want to get is your perennial grasses in there to outcompete the cheatgrass as soon as possible. Sandberg's bluegrass is another good one that has shown some competitive advantages, and so it's a herbicide application followed by replanting once the herbicide has sort of done its work. But it's also, like Commissioner Hall-DeFries said, it's about prioritizing. We have limited resources to do that kind of thing. I mean, we lost millions of acres last year. Where do you put that money on the ground? And it's about prioritizing those core habitats and saving them from incursion before we go into the worst of the worst, and trying to put a Band-Aid on something that may not recover. So really difficult decisions out there habitat-wise.
And so who is doing this habitat recovery? Are there organizations? Is it us? Are the nonprofits? What is happening in this space?
Chair Wall, Commissioner King, the habitat recovery comes down to the land managers. And of course, most of our sage grouse are either on private land or they're on BLM. But of course, you have organizations like the Nature Conservancy that actually do own some really nice sage habitat out east that are doing excellent work. There's land trusts doing great work, but often it does fall to the BLM to do that work, and of course they have very limited resources, and so again, a crux of the problem.
Go ahead. I can't help but follow up on that just because it's passionate for me since this is my backyard. How many CCAA landowner agreements do we have right now in Oregon? Do you guys know? I mean, I should know that. Maybe Dallas Hall-DeFries knows that, but there are so many family ranches that have these sage-grouse plans now that are deeply targeted in addressing these issues like fragmentation, like juniper removal, not old growth juniper. We like old growth juniper, but when you look at maps of how juniper encroachment, young juniper has started to take over, which affects the biodiversity of the other plants that we really need for not just sage grouse, but other habitat. And then anyway, there's a tremendous amount of work going on in sagebrush country to deal with these issues. These catastrophic fires are devastating, but
And there is that continuous march of weeds. We continue to see it. I continue to see it. Makes me crazy. But anyway, yeah, there's a ton of work going on out there, and everybody in Oregon should fall in love with it.
Thank you. Is Tala Khan in the room? Then we will go to, if staff will stay close by, we have one person online and one person in the room. Kristen Hagan online, and then Mike Toady in person.
Excellent. This is Christian Hagan. Would you like me to go first or the person?
Please, yes, go ahead, and you'll have 3 minutes if you will.
You bet. I'll be as close to that as possible. Chair Wall, Commissioners, Director Colbert, for the record, my name is Christian Hagan. I reside at 711 East Tyee Sisters, Oregon. Some of you there in the room know I'm a former ODFW staff member, and due in part to that, I hold deep respect for the opportunity to be here today and a deep appreciation for all that goes into Commission Day at headquarters. As you are all aware, under Oregon sustainability, ODFW is mandated to manage all fish and wildlife for sustainable populations and uses compatible with that sustainability. And this mandate applies to both game and non-game species. And it governs the harvest of sensitive species, including coastal coho, bull trout, mule deer, and sage grouse are no different. They can be a species of conservation concern and still be sustainably harvested under an adaptive management framework. Years ago, when we first developed the sage grouse calculator in 2011 to estimate maximum allowable harvest, state-specific data were limited. Since then, our knowledge of elect locations and the science behind estimating population size and trend, as you heard today, has grown exponentially. This information, combined with long-term field research, has enabled us to test, the assumptions and the validity of our 2011 model. I have provided written testimony that talks more in detail about all of this. I'm just going to share a few of the highlights of the long-term research that we recently concluded, both in the Trout Creek and Warner Mountains. This analysis will be submitted to the Journal of Wildlife Management this September for both peer review and ultimately publication. From 2010 to 2022, we monitored over 1,000 sage grouse using leg bands, standard radio transmitters, and GPS transmitters. Only 24 marked birds were harvested and reported over that time frame. That equated to an average harvest probability of 3.6%, well below the 5% target. It's important to remember that other research on sage grouse suggests that harvest can be as high as 10% of a population and still be compensatory, i.e. not adding to the overall mortality. Our known fate survival portion of the work, which was the GPS marked birds, right? So we have very specific, well-known time of death information, yielded information that showed that annual survivorship was unchanged in both trout creeks. I don't know if you all can see that. But anyway, as you all know, the season was closed in the Trout Creeks after the Holloway fire. It reopened, so we had pre and post information. And what you actually see is once the season was reinstituted, we actually saw increases in annual survivorship. It doesn't mean that harvest is increasing annual survivorship. It just means there's no measurable effect on the overall performance of the population.
Kristen, if you could wrap up.
I'm done. These results provide the first empirical harvest rate for sage grouse in Oregon and indicate that the current harvest framework is meeting its intended sustainability objective. And if there's time or interest, I'm glad to take questions.
I don't see questions, but we appreciate your work and your testimony. So we'll go to Mike Toady then.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, Members of the Commission, and Director Colbert. Good to see you again. OHA, I'm Mike Toady, Conservation Director with Oregon Hunters Association. So OHA previously submitted some written comments, and I just wanted to reiterate just a couple of points there. One specifically is just so you know that OHA is supportive of the permit numbers that have submitted to here today by staff. We just look at this process around this, and it's just like a perfect example of adaptive management, right? So we set a framework through the CAS and the 5-year plan. We do annual plans there. That's what you see in April, and that's what gets published out here. And then with the current information, best information, we make a change to that, and that's adaptive management. That's what we're doing here. That's what staff's done every time. They've articulated that over and over and over again. And so we're just really supportive of this process. We recognize this is an incredibly conservative hunt opportunity, but there is an opportunity there, and there's a lot of value to that. The second point I just wanted to touch on was just this process here today and the impacts of that. So as we look at hunting sage grouse in Oregon, it's already a really compressed time frame, right? So those of us who are interested in hunting sage grouse that maybe live on the South Coast or Central Coast or Portland, that's not a day trip, right? So, I mean, you've got to plan a trip, you've got to schedule time off, and so that's already a compressed time frame. What we've done with this added step here is we've compressed that even further, and we're not supportive of that. And we want as much time to plan for that and enjoy that experience. And see those things that we see from the vice chair that she touts all the time. It's a wonderful environment, a wonderful opportunity there. Further, what we're seeing here also is the impacts to staff here. We've really compressed their time frame. And so with this process, they haven't even done a draw yet. And if we looked back to the previous methodology for this, where you just adopted this through temporary rules, which you're accustomed to doing, that was about as best as we can do in terms of giving them the adequate time to do this. Now they've got to still do the draw after this, maybe today, perhaps early next week. Now they've got to get those envelopes out to get that high level. If we want to have a high level of samples submitted, we have to get those in the hands of hunters as quickly as possible. We're not gonna ask somebody who's leaving on a pronghorn hunt this afternoon to now today give them something to add to that sort of thing. So that all these compressions of time are really unnecessary. And while there's been a valuable conversation today, I don't think we've learned anything that would have substantively changed your opinion or perspective on all this. So we would strongly recommend that we just go back to the previous process that we've used before and conclude my comments with that.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. And we did see your written testimony as well. And we don't have questions, it looks like. So yes, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yeah, if it's acceptable, I move to amend OAR Chapter 635, Division 53 as proposed by staff and shown in Attachment 3.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to amend OAR Chapter 635, Division 53, as was just read into the record. Michelle, could we do a roll call on this one, please?
Labhart.
Yes.
Spellbrink.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Hall DeFreeze.
Yes.
Hatfield Hyde.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes. Motion carries. And thank you all again. And we are not going to take a break. Go ahead. Yeah, thank you very much. And we're not going to take a okay, yes, just go ahead and, okay, I just got outvoted on that one. We are taking a 5-minute break, and then we will have the remaining time for the next exhibit before 11.
Okay. And is that? I won't. No, I might start in advance or working. No. Okay.
I think we'll go ahead and get started. There's our last commissioner. So we will go to Exhibit C, amend the rules on importation, possession, confinement, transportation, and sale of non-native wildlife. And we'll give it to you, Bernadette, and if you all will introduce yourselves.
Good morning again, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield, members of the Commission, Director Colbert. I'm Bernadette Graham-Hudson, the Wildlife Division Administrator. So as a reminder, this is the second part of our two-part rulemaking process that we're trialing with the Division 56 Prohibited Species Rule Amendments. So we presented to you back in June in Pendleton. We accepted public comment on this topic through that meeting and then closed the public comment period on June 20th, so several days after the meeting to give the public a chance to weigh in. We've summarized in your packet the comments that were received, how we reviewed those and addressed them as appropriate, and then our staff recommendation. So today what we're presenting to you is an updated rule set, and we're asking for your approval of that. And I will now turn it to Keith to go through the specifics.
Thank you, Bernadette. Let's just move to the next slide, please. Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, members of the Commission, Director Colbert. My name is Keith Diard. I'm the Invasive Species and Wildlife Integrity Supervisor here. Just as a bit of a reminder regarding what Division 56's purpose is, the purpose of these rules is to protect Oregon's native wildlife by regulating human actions involving non-native wildlife in both trade and in the wild. These rules allow for the private use and ownership of non-native species, but only to the extent that they do not pose a significant risk to harm our native species or their habitats. Next slide, please. In this rule set, species are classified into 4 different categories. The prohibited list, which is the default list, so any non-native species that's not addressed is by default prohibited. And this is non-native wildlife that may not be imported, possessed, sold, purchased, or exchanged, or transported within the state. The non-controlled list, which are species that we have determined do not pose a significant threat to native wildlife and can be imported, possessed, sold, purchased, exchanged, or transported in the state. The controlled list, which is a list of potentially harmful native species for which controls can be established and have been established to prevent the harm to native species and their wildlife. And then a 4th list that is exempt, primarily domestic animals and animals that ODFW does not have authority over, but ODA typically would take care of. Next slide, please. Just as a brief reminder, because I am in the middle of you and the award ceremony coming up. Brief reminder, we are proposing changes to the status of golden mussels, which was the initial reason for opening this, to prohibit them in the state as a result of their recent detection in California, the first of its kind in North America, which is highly concerning to us. But as we open this up, staff recommended changes to non-native abalone, adding them to the prohibited list, increasing the breadth of mystery snails and oyster drills, non-native, and prohibiting those, and then also moving sea turtles from non-controlled to prohibited lists as a result of their ESA listed status. Next slide, please. On the non-controlled species list, which as a reminder are those that can be possessed in Oregon because they do not, or they've not been shown to pose a significant threat, is to add the brush-tailed batong, which is a animal that is somewhat common in the pet trade and we've received requests for in the past. And then adding a genus of geckos and a single species of snake in the python and boas. In the python boas genus. So next slide, please. And finally, the proposed changes to the controlled species. We propose changing some of the controls around mute swan, removing the neuter requirement for males, but adding the requirement to destroy nests when found. And then also changing regulations around green crab, including the removing the return to water prohibition, which causes a conflict in our rules when we have a limitation on the capture of green crab, and then tell them they can't remove or return it. So trying to take care of that conflict in our rules, as well as removing the commercial prohibition and allowing marine staff to regulate that. Next slide, please. After the initial presentation and what you heard also at the June meeting was a proposal from the public that request octopuses be placed on the prohibited list, or octopi, octopuses. Okay. The intent of the request is to prevent aquaculture of octopuses in Oregon. Next slide, please. As a result of the public comment, staff ended up not recommending changing the status of octopus in Division 56. Ultimately, there was insufficient information provided to evaluate the ecological risk to native species or the habitats in Oregon. And currently, Oregon rules and our rules around aquaculture through ODFW already evaluate the impact that an aquaculture production would have on native species or their habitats. And then we also looked at the concern about water impacts to quality and quantity, and those would also be addressed already through rule in an aquaculture permitting process, but they would be done through Oregon Water Resources or the Oregon DEQ. So ultimately, we did not recommend making any changes to the prohibited list as a result of this. Next slide, please. And finally, the other comment we received was regarding Asian small-clawed otter, which is currently a prohibited species in Oregon. The commenter made the recommendation that we correct the scientific name in our rules for Asian small-clawed otter, which we addressed, and we did so on other species as we found them throughout the Division 56 rules. I will note that the commenter also was in support of keeping it on the prohibited list and was thankful for the time that my predecessor had taken to convincing him that the prohibited list was the appropriate place for it. And so just a good success story of ongoing communication with public comment. So staff accepted that recommendation and made appropriate changes in the rules. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Go ahead, Commissioner Labhart.
Just a confusing or clarification question for me, Keith.
Yeah.
So the definitions in Division 66, it always starts with non-native. And so octopus is native to Oregon, isn't it?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart, yes, thank you for that question. There is native octopus, correct, but these prohibitions are only for non-native species, correct. And so it was the request to prohibit the aquaculture of non-native species. That's the only thing we could regulate within these rules.
Okay, that clarifies the point. Thank you.
Other questions? I do have one, and I also thank you for the summary of comments and responses to it. It was actually helpful to get that. It tied it up well. This is a small question, but when we were talking about whether or not to do octopus change, it said we would only do that now if it was for ecological reasons. But water quality water quality seems like, on the face of it, that seems like an ecological category. Is it just a technicality that would get taken care of in the permit because it is ecological? Does that make sense?
Chair Wall, yes. So the reason one of the reasons we weren't recommending putting it on the prohibited list is being on the prohibited list doesn't prohibit aquaculture of octopus. So they would still have to go through a permitting process for that. So it wouldn't really solve the problem that the commenters were trying to get at in terms of those potential negative impacts of an aquaculture operation. So those The water quality and quantity would be reviewed in the aquaculture permit process.
So that helps. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, and we don't have testimony on this one, which I forgot for the moment, but was reminded. We did this. This was our experiment with splitting a rule presentation in half and doing it in 2 different months. And so we closed public comment several weeks ago. So we don't have testimony. And so I will look for a motion.
I move to amend OAR Chapter 635, Division 56, as proposed by staff and shown in Attachment 3.
Second.
Looks like no other questions. So it's been moved and seconded to amend OAR. Whoops. No, you did. You did it right. It was just the same words that we had just read, so I thought I was reading the wrong one, but we have it right. It's been moved and seconded to amend OAR Chapter 635, Division 56, as was just read into the record. Could we do a roll call on this one, Michelle, please?
Haldefreeze.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Spellbrink.
Yes.
Labhart.
Yes.
Hatfield Hyde.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes. And so thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we will talk at some point about commissioners and how they feel about the split and get your view as well on the split rule in terms of the way we hear these. We do have a commissioner update, and since we have a few minutes before the 11 o'clock time certain, we're going to go to Commissioner Labhart for an update on some of his work with OWEB.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wall. I wanted to bring this forward to the commission members. Probably most of you already know this, but I think it's important for the public that's watching this to know and understand what is going on out there in our communities around Oregon that is, in my opinion, pretty impressive. As you know, I've been sitting on the OWEB board for 6 years now, and it just constantly impresses me the amount of effort, work, and volunteerism that is going on in this state at this point in time. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about what OWEB, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, is doing to achieve this mission behind me. In 2025-27, there are, I think if I get it correct, there are about 55 watershed councils in the state of Oregon. Watershed councils are funded administratively by OWEB. We awarded $9.9 million in the 2025-27 biennium to these watershed councils, and that keeps them from an administrative level functioning. But most of watershed councils are made up of volunteers. And there are literally thousands of volunteers out there that are members of these watershed councils that are doing yeoman's work. And they do it because they love it. They do it because it's fun. They do it because they see results. And there's probably all other reasons, but there are literally thousands of volunteers across the entire state of Oregon in these 55 watershed councils. And we gave them $10 million in OWEB funding to continue their good work. In the 25-27 grant fund bienniums, we we're estimating that we will give away $158 million, $158 million in grant funds to watershed councils, to land trusts, to the various things that OWEB funds. $158 million, that's a lot of money. And it's going out there to do good work on the ground that is achieving that mission statement behind me. There's also a funding called the Natural and Working Lands Funds, which is what we call open solicitation grants, where pretty much any entity can apply for them. We also have the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program, which is a conservation and a management plan that keeps farms and ranches in farms and ranches. And so if we have a farm or a ranch that is not going to be passed down to a future generation and somebody comes in and says, well, I'll give you several $1,000,000 for that and I can turn it into houses, they can get a conservation easement from OWEB through this conservation program, and it keeps the ranch in a ranch or a farm in a farm, and keeps the rancher able to do their current practices that they would like to do on a voluntary basis. OWEB awarded $1.5 million in open solicitation grants, and we just recently awarded $750,000 on the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program. So to date, we've awarded $1.5 million in 6 awards to farms and ranches across Oregon. So the reason I bring all this up is that I think that a lot of people kind of wonder, you know, well, ODF&W does this, ODF&W does that. And sure, we do great work and we have biologists out in the field and we're working with people on a voluntary basis and we set rules and regulations, but there's a lot of other things going on out there in the communities that are just doing really great things for fish and wildlife in Oregon. And so I wanted to just bring that to your attention that there's literally thousands of people out there right now that are out there on the ground doing really, really good work. And so I just want to applaud their work, applaud their efforts. And I'm proud to be a member of OWEB and being able to provide funding. That's the best part about being on this commission. It's tough sometimes because we have to make tough decisions. OWEB, we just give away money. So it's really fun. The problem is we don't have enough. We always have, there's always more requests than we have money for. So it's a really fun board to be on. But I just want to bring that to the attention of the public that's watching and the commissioners about all this good work that's going out on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart. I have one follow-up question. The numbers that you were giving in terms of the grant money going out from OWEB, is that the state lottery dollars only, or were you also talking about the federal, the recovering coastal salmon and those kinds of funds?
Yes and yes. It is state lottery dollars and it's all kinds of funding sources. This last biennium, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is federal funding, had provided quite a few $1 million that went down out on the ground to various projects. There's foundations that fund things. There's FMC funds, the Pacific Coast Salmon Recovery Funds that fund projects. There's a number of different funding sources, but the Oregon Lottery is one of the major contributors. So if you see that little lottery machine, you know, you're taking a chance, but you're also providing money that goes to OWEB to do good things out on the ground. So,
you know, one thing I want to add to your report, if I could, is that we're going to hear about coho this afternoon. We often in these conversations say, yeah, we have these issues, but it's all about habitat. And what's remarkable about, in my view, when I hear the OWEB story is that a lot of that, all of it almost, started for the Oregon plan to invest in this state in habitat and hatcheries and, you know, shifting the hatcheries, changing harvest, all of that. But it actually invested in habitat, which is rare. And it gives us a story for where we're headed with coho, which we'll hear later. But coho is a remarkable story of something that's actually seeming to have some surge and have an upswing in population. And it's a story to hang on to, if you will. And we need to be careful in all of those things, but it is a remarkable story that can happen when you do in that long-term investment in habitat. It's been, 22 years or 3 years already that we've been investing in habitat in Oregon, and something's happened as a result with coho, and it's pretty remarkable. So just wanted to add that. And I think we are pretty close to our time, and there is not time to get into another one. So should we take a break and get ready for the 11 o'clock?
That sounds perfect. Here.
All right.
Set up the room and get started with the awards at 11.
Thank you all.
Pull them on in. Come on in. We've got more seats here. Come on in. All right, I think we're about ready to get started. We're really excited today to do our annual awards ceremony. Spoiler alert, I'm just going to tell you, like, it's my favorite day. I am so proud of the work that our staff do. And I sit and I listen to things like even this morning's presentation, and I'm like, you get an award and you get an award. I mean, like, they're just, it's hard. It's hard to choose. There's so many amazing people that we work with at ODFW. But we do have some really special folks that we're going to honor today. And I'm really excited that the commissioner and I are going to be tag teaming this. So the plan is that we will go through each award, talk a little bit about the recipient, and then we'll hand out the awards, and then we'll do a quick photo op, and then we'll go to the next one. So that's the plan. A little bit about the award process is the folks that you're going to be hearing about today are all folks that were nominated by their colleagues, which I think is pretty significant because, you know, we're all so busy, and it just means so much when somebody notices your effort, notices the impact that you're having, and then takes the time to tell others about it. And so we had a lot of nominations, and I just want to thank every single person that put in nominations because those staff know they were nominated. And so again, it's really meaningful for them to hear that their work is valued from their coworkers. I also want to thank the committee that worked on selecting the awards this year. It's composed of recipients from prior years. And so special thanks to Callie Adkins, Emily Van Wyk, Michelle Dennehy, Justin Mills, Scott Quigley, Brent Heiners, Dave Money, Darlene Beal. So many thanks to them going through all of these amazing nominations, and then also for Michelina Engel, Ken Loffink, and Myrna Brighton, who support the committee's work every year and get us ready and get all of these beautifully printed awards ready for us. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Vice Chair Becky Hatfield-Hyde for the first award.
Great. Okay, this is good. And I think our first award person is virtual. So if we could get Andrew Myers popping up on the screen. Does that happen? Is that what we're thinking? That they'll... Don't hide, Andrew.
I'm here.
Okay. We don't get to see, we aren't seeing you right now, but it's so great you're there. Okay. So Andrew has been with the department for 5 years and serves as the district wildlife biologist located in the Dalles. This quote from his nomination gives you a good sense of Andrew's work. Andrew's ability to challenge and ask questions of the way things have traditionally been done has allowed our district to improve survey methodologies and fill a variety of data gaps. His nomination materials shared numerous examples of this, exploring a more accurate way to better monitor the black-tailed deer population in the Hood Wildlife Management Unit, working to calculate a black bear population estimate at the Wildlife Management Unit scale using trail cameras, using a new mark recapture population model to obtain a more accurate pond turtle population estimate, creating a new survey form to facilitate more efficient bighorn sheep check-ins,
there. Oh, yes. We see you now. You're on the big screen, just so you know. Like you just because you're online doesn't mean the whole world isn't looking at you right now. All right. And producing several shiny apps allowing district data to be easily accessible and digestible. As these examples show, Andrew's analytical expertise and willingness to try new approaches are a huge asset for the agency. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Andrew for his outstanding work.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll have to Photoshop Andrew in later.
Show his award at least. Like,
Thank you. There it is, right there.
Yeah, thank you. I think the next award is online, also is virtual. Clarissa Robertson, are you there, Robertson?
See that picture.
I am here.
Okay, great. Glad you're here. Larry, you hear that okay? Okay, Clarissa Robertson is our next award recipient. She's worked for the department for 5 years and is the Charleston office specialist and licensed support person. Clarissa has been on a job rotation tasked with transitioning small businesses away from utilizing prepaid booklets of licensing products to the electronic licensing system. I used to pack one of those little booklets around too, so I know what you did. This transition is important for the department to ensure it is meeting federal requirements and that the state receives its full federal awards. It also impacts hundreds of businesses like guides, charters, outfitters, and small sporting goods stores. And it is a change that has taken a lot of work to bring these folks along. Thankfully, the department, we sent our best, Clarissa. You're now a winning award for that. You've done an exceptional job with this, traveling to more than 100 licensed vendors in person to discuss the transition and to provide training and onboarding for the new process. In addition, you have represented the department at numerous special events, providing training, outreach, and education to numerous partners, including tribes, veterans, small businesses, and other organizations. Her coworkers note that Clarissa's positive attitude, exceptional knowledge, and dedication make her a joy for customers and colleagues to work with. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Very humble. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Next, we have someone who's actually in the room. Can you guys hear me okay? So next is Luis Escobar. Congratulations, Luis. And get their board and get it. So also works as a license support agent. Years here at headquarters. Special licensing in the transition. Audit on ELF. There, that was a big lift. And he helped them with this important transition. His, like Clarissa, really positive intentional support to customer service, representing the agency across several venues. This includes small businesses, customers, Oregon State Police, Oregon Department of Veteran Affairs, and our 9 federally recognized tribes. He has been recognized for his coworkers for, quote, approaching all tasks with can-do attitude and using a calm, thoughtful, friendly, and positive approach to problem solving. Thank you, Luis, and congratulations. Oh.
We'll be smart. The next award goes to Jordan Smith. Is she in the room? Yay. Director Colbert mentioned that these nominations come from all of you for Jordan, this came from 4 of you. So she got 4 nominations for this one. So that's impressive. I'll share a few highlights from the 4 nominations. Jordan, as I understand it, is the hydropower coordinator out of the LeGrand office. And in the past year, she undertook a job rotation with the Fish Division to help ODF&W's hatchery programs ensure compliance with federal laws and with regulations. She dug deep so she could understand the operations and needs of nearly every hatchery program across the state and develop management plans that covered these programs from a legal perspective. This work involved a significant amount of coordination across the entire state with propagation, hatchery, and district staff, as well as external partners. Jordan brought clarity to very complex matters, and her recommendations will greatly improve ODFW's hatchery program coordination. As part of the project, Jordan developed a template to streamline hatchery and genetic management plans, and her efforts will benefit the agency for years to come. So Jordan, to you, congratulations on this very well-earned recommendation.
I'm just happy. Congratulations.
Okay, the next award goes to Jake Diddle. Are you in the room, Jake? So Jake, I'm also from John Day. I grew up there, so I'm going over for an antelope hunt right after the meeting today. Can I ride with you? So first of all, I'd like to say I think I can speak for all the commissioners. I want to thank Director Colbert for this because it's an honor and a privilege for us to be involved in recognizing all of you. And we could sit back there and watch somebody else present this, but we get a chance to also recognize you and talk about you. And so I think we all consider it an honor and a privilege to do this. So the next award goes to Jake Diddle, who is a wildlife research biologist out of the John Day Field Office. Jake's work developing user-friendly data tools, leading complex capture efforts, and advancing research has directly influenced conservation outcomes. During the past year in particular, he has helped research project through difficulties associated with logistics and staffing vacancies. There were numerous examples of his efforts, including planning and coordinating the capture operations of both the John Day and the Lakeview study sites for mule deer. This also required him working additional hours to physically conduct capture operations at both areas, developing survey designs for detection dog surveys to locate carnivore scat at both study areas while we experience staff vacancies, and conducting data analysis to assess the behavioral response of mule deer and elk to active wildfires during the summer of 2024. One example stands out in particular. Logistically, the research project experienced complete technology failure of the implants used to notify researchers when fawns are born and to help locate the fawns for capture. This failure required a substantially increased workload, 12 plus hours, 7 days a week, to try and capture the fawns. Jake worked tirelessly to ensure that we still met minimum data collection standards for our research objectives. Jake's effort over the past year demonstrate his passion for wildlife and improving our knowledge of how to manage species and their habitats, and will provide a lasting benefit to the agency. Please join me in congratulating Jake.
The next award goes to Eric Hammonds. I think Eric is here, right? There he is. We frequent a lot of the same country. And my grandson tells me there's a whole bunch of summer steelhead moved into the slots lately here. Good. That's good. Eric has worked for the department for more than 18 years and currently serves as the Newport Fish and Wildlife Technician.
Eric's colleagues note his outstanding work ethic and genuine pride in the work he does and the hatchery product being cultured at LC Hatchery. He has been a very effective communicator, frequently updating district staff on fish numbers, fish health, and any needs they have for broodstock to meet production goals. More recently, in 2024, Eric completed a job rotation to the Mid-Coast Assistant District Fish Biologist position. Eric eagerly jumped at the opportunity to understand district operations and brought with him skill sets that were valuable to the district. He provided both personal and professional knowledge of mid-coast fisheries and an understanding of the complex social issues involved with those fisheries during his job rotation. Here's a quote from a nominator. Eric is a giver of his time, knowledge, and experience. To say he is worthy of the Pride Award would be understating his commitment and dedication to ODFW and the resources we manage. Congratulations, Eric.
Daryl Griffiths, is he, there you are. On up. This one's a great one to present as well, and I'm excited to do it. Daryl has served as a human resources assistant in the ODF&W headquarters office for almost 2 years. This is a chance to recognize Daryl's work as a good reminder of the dedication so many people in this agency behind the scenes do to enable ODF&W to deliver on its mission for fish and wildlife and habitat. Here, I'm going to read a few of the quotes that came in with the nomination. No matter the question or challenge, he is always available to point me in the right direction. If he doesn't have the answer, he takes the time to find it or connects me with the right person who can help. His willingness to step up and problem solve has been incredibly helpful to me and to the division I support. His support has made my job significantly easier, and I feel fortunate to work alongside someone so dedicated and approachable. He is a key piece of the puzzle that helps everything run smoothly, especially in the hiring process. Not an easy process, as you all know. Without his support, hiring would be far more challenging. His presence truly makes a difference. Those are great things to hear from colleagues, I think. Congratulations to you, Daryl, and thank you for this recognition.
Next up, I have the honor of bringing Beth Quillian for her award. Congratulations, Beth. Did I say your name right? Yeah, I got one wrong last year, so I'm still a bit stung by that. So I'm glad I got your name right. So Beth joined in 2021, so recent, but clearly impactful. She is a public information officer, or PIO. She has been considered a go-to partner during this all over the northwest part of the state and my home ground. And as many of you know, community engagement is one of the things near and dear to my heart. So I really appreciate seeing the comments about her work to develop creative ways to proactively address issues faced by the agency. Tireless efforts to promote the public's understanding of fish and wildlife and new ways to improve our public outreach, and her outstanding customer service to the staff she works with and the public. She's worked on everything from elk on the beach to young wildlife to bears and coyotes. Some of the comments from her colleagues include she can be trusted to convey sensitive topics to the public, but does so in a way that is honest and informative. Secondly, there is no communications person I'd rather work with in a crisis to proactively address wildlife issues than Beth. Congratulations.
Okay, next, Lynn Mattis, I saw you walking right there. She is. I knew I saw her there. Lynn has been with the department for more than 17 years and currently serves as the Marine Fisheries Section Manager out of the Newport office. I don't think any of us were surprised to see that she was nominated for this. I know firsthand about Lynn's work as a fishery manager. She goes the extra mile in everything she does. She ensures all voices are heard, working to bridge differing viewpoints and create outcomes that respect both environmental needs and fishing interests. She maintains a calm and professional demeanor, which I think we've observed, even in the face of adversity, helping to steady and guide those around her. Her professionalism and expertise is especially evident in her service as one of the current department representatives on the Pacific Fisheries Management Council. Serving in this role requires extensive traveling, long hours, coordination, communication, and problem solving. In addition to being the department's council member for groundfish issues, she goes the extra mile by preparing briefing notes, developing a seat coverage plan, running the Oregon delegation meetings, and serves on the legislative committee and the International Pacific Halibut Strategy Advisory Board. She does it all with humor and transparency and a deep sense of responsibility and a passion for serving both the agency and the public. She brings the same dedication to her role as a supervisor, supports the professional goals and growth of her team, and a healthy work-life balance. You're very deserving of this award, and congratulations.
One of the cool things about being director is that you get to actually do a Director's Choice Award to one of the nominees that is submitted. And so for the Director's Individual Award, Choice Award this year, I want to honor Aubrey Pernot. Okay. Aubrey's official title is Print and Web Designer, but that really doesn't do it justice. I like to think of her as the title more along the lines of all things creative services and our agency strategic artist. I'm going to share some quotes. Aubrey has helped the agency push the envelope of our design since coming on board just 3 years ago. Her keen eye and mastery of the modern aesthetic is helping to shift our agency visual brand into the present, one deliverable at a time. I couldn't agree more with all that quote and so many others that in her nominations. Truly, Aubrey is a delight to work with. She's dedicated to bringing the best to each and every project she delivers. The Coyote Palooza work, the hatchery truck wrap, booth designs from the sports show that we're repurposing today, selfie stations, just the list goes on and on. I'm particularly grateful, and I love that our legislative fiscal analyst is here. Welcome, Sione. Thank you for joining us. Just wanted to particularly give her a shout out for the work that she did on our Ways and Means slide presentations this year. It's like 100+ slide deck. And Aubrey worked on a very tight timeline to just create the outstanding product that we use to present our budget to the legislature this year. I'm just going to tell you, it's some of the hardest cats to herd in terms of getting a slide deck. You know who you are in this room. And she was able to take large amounts of information that we created in that Ways and Means presentation and just make it so appealing and great presentation of the agency at a really important place for us as an agency. In a rare moment of feedback, the Legislative Fiscal Office noted that it was one of the best that they had seen. And so thank you, Aubrey, for helping our agency to put our best foot forward and for being such a strong visual storyteller. Thank you.
Excellent. I personally really enjoy the selfie stations.
So we're switching
to this. Oh, you intro that.
Yeah. Okay, so next up, we are actually going to shift from our individual awards to what we call the Manager Mentor Award. And this award recognizes a supervisor who serves as a role model for their colleagues in their support and encouragement of staff. And so,
okay. All right. Cam Sharp. I am very happy to present the Manager Mentor Award to Cameron Sharp. Cam has worked for 14 years at ODF&W and currently serves as the Field Operations Supervisor in Newport. Cam received 4 nominations for this award, and his staff has so much to share about his excellence as a manager and a mentor. Cam oversees a cadre of commercial fishery port biologists, assistant port biologists, and BSAs that are responsible for collecting biological data from marine commercial fisheries. Staff are spread all along the Oregon coast from Brookings to Astoria. This could lead to some feelings of isolation or disconnect. However, Cam makes an effort to keep his team communicating both with him as well as each other to help ensure a cohesive, effective team. He always advocates for us and our needs. He also pushes us a little out of our comfort zones to better our career. I strive to be a mentor like him someday. Cam has been the best manager that I have had in my 10 plus years of working for ODF&W. He is always checking to make sure we have all that we need to effectively do our work. Encourages whatever training we may come across to make us better employees. These are just a few examples from those that work for him. Thank you, Cam, for being an outstanding mentor, and congratulations on your award.
all right, the next award recognizes an employee for their outstanding efforts to support and advance our agency's diversity, equity, and inclusion goals.
Thank you. And I love to do this one. Is Gway Rogers Kirshner in the room? There she is. Yay. I'm happy to present the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award to Gway Rogers Kirshner. She is the Technical and Data Services Manager for the Marine Program in Newport. Her return to the Marine Program coincided with the signing of the individual agreements with the Oregon Western Tribes. She has been working to ensure program staff have the resources and tools to help navigate these new relationships respectfully and well. This includes leading efforts to compile and coordinate marine tribal regulations so staff have a better understanding of what they are and how they differ. Gway's work is especially important for the Marine Creole samplers whom she coaches on interviewing tribal members. She has also recently helped create a tribal outreach and working group within the Marine program to help ensure effective working relationships with tribal partners, especially as new staff join the team. Gway's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion for ODF&W is appreciated very much. This is an important work, a set of work, so congratulations to you and thank you for it.
All right. The next few awards are designed to recognize groups of employees for their accomplishments working together as a team, facing challenging issues, priority efforts of the agency, and just the really big lift that can only be done. So we are going to recognize 3 outstanding teams today.
I want to make sure I get in the picture on this one. I'm glad that the director gave me this one to present. I'm very honored. So if I call your name, if you'd please come on up. This is the first team award for the Mule Deer Management Revision Team. So if you're in the room, if you would come up, please. Josh Smith, Don Whitaker. Don, I saw you for sure. Darren Clark. Colin Gillen's not here. Jeremy Thompson. Jeremy's virtual, I think. Are you virtual, Jeremy? No, he's not. Okay. Phil, you're here. Phil Milburn, excuse me. Derek Broman. Where's Derek? There he is. Joy Lovett. Camelia Kennedy. Adam Baylor. Bob, put the camera down, get in there. Bob Swingle. And last but definitely not least, Yvonne Shaw. Yvonne, come on up. So this team was tasked with a complete overhaul and rewrite of our mule deer plan. It was culminated in the adoption by the commission in June of 2024. It was the first update to the plan in 20 years, in more than 20 years. It was an effort that involved almost every part of the agency, East Region, each research program, Wildlife Division, Wildlife Health Lab, Information Education, Habitat Division. This was more than a revision. It was a significant advancement in our approach to managing this iconic species. This team accomplished this through new, innovative ideas, both in how we propose to manage mule deer in the state and how we connect with the public. This included gathering information to inform a scientifically sound new approach to mule deer management, including thorough data analysis and development of a herd range approach, which is a major shift. The revision process took over 2 years as they developed the herd ranges, wrote the report, engaged extensive with the public in drafting and updating the report, and presented it to this commission. There's much work ahead to implement the plan, but a strong foundation was set through the work of this team. Many thanks to all of you for your outstanding work and advancement of Oregon's mule deer. Congratulations. In the picture. Can I get in the picture? Bob, you gotta be in the.
Big lift.
Thank you.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Listen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So next up, another huge team, 12 members strong. Some are virtual, some won't be attending, but I'm going to make sure to list all 12 of them. So this is the Team Oregon Wildlife Human Attack Response Training Team. They're known as WART. Okay. So the members of WART are Jennifer Ringo.
Come on up.
Congratulations. Steve Niemela, who I've not seen today. He's probably doing something in North Willamette office. Paul Atwood. Paul. Philip Perrine. It says not attending, so maybe Philip's not here. Matthew Vargas. There's Matthew. Jamie Bowles. Congratulations, Jamie. Colin Gillen, this is not attending. This is his second team award, so congrats to Colin. Brian Wolfer, I saw him limping around. Careful, Brian. Take your time. I know you're cooking, working hard. Thank you for that. Our OSP Sergeant, Ryan Teague. Tag? Have I said it? I'm sorry. Tag. Congratulations, Sergeant. Lieutenant Tim Schwartz. That says virtual, or is he maybe with us? Another OSP? No, nobody? Okay. Dana Drinner. Hey, Dana. You should have brought Steve with you. And Adam Baylor. Have I already said Adam Baylor? There he is. Okay. I think I've listed everyone, and a couple of folks that are multiple award winners. Congratulations. This team is a joint between our Oregon State Police and the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, formed in 2023. And it was formed in response to create a training team to ensure the staff were prepared for responding to incidences, essentially, and responding to the reports of wildlife attack, and then also like communicating with the media. And that's why the work of this team is so important. They developed an internal training curriculum and about essentially how to contribute to wildlife attack response. And then they created training tailored to Oregon specific, using Oregon specific case studies. Okay. And they created roles and responsibilities relevant to incidences. They have created an updated agency response plan and successfully conducted 2 trainings for staff all across the state. Attendees at the trainings reported they felt better prepared to respond to a wildlife attack. And numerous participants said it was one of the best organized and most useful trainings they've ever had. So congratulations. Congratulations to all of you. And I'll also shout out to Jennifer, who was and listed, I think, first because she was the chair of this team and deserves some extra special recognition. Congratulations, Jennifer.
All right. As I mentioned before, I get the pleasure as director to pick from among the nominations and also do a director's team award. And so I'm really excited to talk about the work of this team. It goes to our Hatchery Infrastructure and Resilience Assessment Project team, which included Scott Patterson, Chris Lorian, and Sean Clemens. Who's hiding, Sean? Oh, there he is. Okay, great. Chris is on vacation, but he emailed me. Yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. Is they don't love this. Like, they're all so humble that they emailed me and they were like, it was really all Chris, and then Chris is emailing me going, it was really Sean. And I'm like, oh, you guys, y'all are an awesome team. And I should say that there were many hands involved in our hatchery resiliency project, in our contracting group, our hatchery coordinators, our propagation staff. We had so many stakeholders that engaged in this process. It was extensive. The backstory is that the legislature in 2023 gave our agency $1 million in a budget note and to invest in third-party analysis of our hatchery system and how well it was prepared to face the future. Hatcheries need clean, ample supplies of water. They can be very susceptible to kind of warming temperatures. And so, just really thinking about how we sustain the system into the future, given some of the changes that we're seeing. It was, honestly, Sean and I were in offices when the legislature chose to give this money, and we were nervous about whether we could pull it off because the timeline to execute this work was unbelievable. And it's why I want to highlight these individuals in particular, because there was so much work that went into it. If you haven't seen the final report, it is so well done. And they had an extensive process with our stakeholders. I mean, some of these questions are very, very hard for us to be thinking about the long term and how we can sustain the system and continue a well operating and successful hatchery program. And these were the leaders that really leaned in and pulled off this work. And just it is something that we are going to rely on for, you know, many years to come. And I personally think it had a lot to do. For those of you who heard the budget update earlier, the legislature chose to give the agency $20 million in bonds for infrastructure improvements for our hatcheries. I don't know that we would have gotten that money, but for the fact that we had such a fantastic analysis that was done by all of you. And I just really thank you for your hard work. So thank you. This next award is particularly meaningful for all of us that work at Fish and Wildlife. The next award is the Dave Leisha Volunteer Award. It's presented annually in honor of Dave Leisha. Dave worked for the department for 25 years, concentrating most of his efforts on working with volunteers and improving fisheries and aquatic education programs. Dave was tragically killed in a car accident in 2002 while returning home from the Clackamas office. This award honors his memory and recognizes an outstanding volunteer or group that works with fish and wildlife programs.
Thank you, Director. So this is one of the awards. If you were here for earlier in the commission meeting, we talked about there's literally thousands and thousands of volunteers out in Oregon that are doing good things for fish and wildlife. And so it's really tough to be able to grab one group because we know there's a lot of them that deserve the recognition, but we want to recognize one group in particular today. So I'm very happy to present the award to both the Bend chapter of the Oregon Hunters Association, represented today by President Rex Parks. And then also Suzanne Linford, I think you're online, Suzanne. Let's try if we could get your picture up instead of an SL on there. Are you on, Suzanne? Is she on?
Yes, I am.
Can we see your face? Can you hit the video?
Yes.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you for turning your video on, Suzanne. Collectively, these folks have been at the forefront of promoting wildlife passage in Oregon over the last 10 years. Much of this work has been intertwined, and so we want to recognize them today. They saw a dire need to reduce wildlife vehicle collisions on our road systems that have fragmented habitat and caused direct mortality to Oregon's wildlife species, and channeled their time and energy to support public agencies and build community engagement. Completion of the first dedicated wildlife crossing in Oregon in 2012 was a huge milestone. However, key to the success was maintaining the fencing to direct deer, elk, and a suite of other species under Highway 97, which is a major north-south route through eastern Oregon. ODF and W&ODOT lack the capacity to regularly patrol the 8 miles of fencing and repair damage from trees, vehicle strikes, and other impairments to the fencing. The amazing members of the Bend OHA stepped into that role willingly and have been working independently on this effort since 2017. To date, they have contributed hundreds of volunteer hours patrolling the fence along the 5 current crossing structures in Central Oregon. We truly have no functioning wildlife passage on 97 without them. Congratulations and thank you for your volunteer work. Okay, Suzanne, it's your turn. Sorry. Suzanne has been the backbone of public outreach and education on wildlife passage in Central Oregon since 2015. She was motivated to start volunteering after attending an ODF&W presentation on habitat fragmentation and quickly became a galvanizing force. Through countless presentations and testimony on local land use projects and wildlife passage bills, Suzanne has demonstrated a knack for taking complicated topics related to wildlife and making them easy to understand for the general public. As part of the Bend to Saddle Lake Wildlife Passage Initiative, which is just getting going, or has been going for a while, but is getting more traction, Suzanne has helped the coalition develop and conduct outreach in local community groups, spreading the word about the importance of this project and how it will support our region's wildlife. Her efforts in Central Oregon have also spread throughout the state through involvement with the Oregon Action Team on ungulate migration and the Oregon Wildlife Foundation, where she serves as a wildlife ambassador. She also authored Oregon's first wildlife-friendly fencing manual that generated conversation and around incorporation of wildlife-friendly fencing in the OWEB-funded projects. And OWEB provided some significant funding to this project. In tandem, Bend OHA and Suzanne Linford have been instrumental in creating and maintaining progress on wildlife passage that we see today. They're among the true founders of this work, and we owe them a great deal of appreciation. Our thanks to Suzanne and to all the devoted volunteers of Bend OHA chapter for the volunteer hours. And Suzanne, it's going to be my charge and yours to get that passage project on that Sisters to Saddle Lake deal. We'll get it one way or another. Congratulations.
Right. Our final award today is the Land Stewardship Award. As all of you know, private landowners and land managers are some of the most critical partners for our agency. We're excited to honor and celebrate those that work voluntarily to manage their property to provide for healthy fish and wildlife habitat. This award celebrates their dedication and commitment to Oregon's fish and wildlife.
All right, this award goes to Dry Fly Management Company, Redside Restoration Project, Ryder Redfield. Yay, thank you. All right, I am happy to present the Land Stewardship Award to Dry Fly Management Company for the Redside Restoration Project, represented today by Ryder Redfield, Sky Sharp, and Eric Evans. This team of land managers have been incredible partners with ODF&W and others for the benefit of our natural resources. Ryder takes his passion for all things wild and shares his energy with others, from partnerships for the greater good of protecting and enhancing wildlife populations and their habitats. Sky manages the livestock operations and strives for a working ranch that is harmonious and beneficial to wildlife habitat. Eric is an experienced natural resource manager and takes ideas for habitat enhancement and turns them into tangible projects with positive impacts in the area. This team of land managers isn't afraid to think outside the box and dream up creative ideas to conserve and protect Oregon's wildlife and habitats. Here, an example from our staff. We initially set out to deploy trail cameras to look for wolves that were potentially in the area, and then we started discussing opportunities to enhance habitat in the area. Ryder already had an idea of work that could be done on the various properties, so we set out with a plan to mark out areas to treat juniper, create wildlife forage plots, and enhance water for wildlife by replacing old livestock watering areas with guzzlers. Throughout project development, we continued to bounce ideas on other projects could be done and other contacts that would be needed to move more work forward. Over the course of the 2-year project, they treated 400 acres of juniper encroachment, purchased seed for up to 200 acres of wildlife forage plots, and installed 7 wildlife guzzlers. In addition to this work, Ryder involved OSU Cascades to explore partnerships with the diatomaceous earth mine restoration and the possibility to collect and grow native seed. This is where he has now connected with Hillary Doulos to get seed collection and grow efforts started for future habitat benefits across a larger landscape. Ryder and his team are leading the way in Eastern Oregon to seek answers on how to increase the amount of native grass seed available for habitat restoration and post-wildfire recovery. On behalf of the department and Oregon's Fish and Wildlife, thank you, Dry Fly Management Company, Ryder, Sky, and Eric. We couldn't be more thrilled to work with such passionate, genuine, and dedicated land stewards. Thank you.
Well, what a great group of folks that we have recognized today. Can we give everyone one more round of applause? So next, we're going to have some fun. We are all set up for our barbecue, and it looks like folks have been trying to cover things up in case of rain. But I hope all of you will join us for our barbecue. There's going to be signs that show you how to kind of start working your way through the lines. So look for the signs. And I also want to give a special shout out because many of the folks that you're going to see cooking today are ODFW retirees, and we love them and so appreciate they're willing to come back and celebrate with us and help with the barbecue. So we'll resume the meeting at 1, and I hope you all have an awesome time with the lunch. Thank you.